Chapter 845. Su Fang unleashed an all-out attack from the Milky Way. Countless clouds of fire descended and struck the surrounding square formations. As expected, the number of arrows decreased. "Look, please move." In addition, 6 big goblins had already entered, so it was almost impossible for arrows to explode in a large area. Su Fang seized this opportunity and ordered everyone to enter the primordial god world's square formations in the shortest amount of time possible. However, he alone created a cloud of fire vortex in the starry sky. Su Fang used one of the most common divine abilities of the limitless Dao arts, the limitless clone. The limitless Dao arts came from Doichi. Naturally, the limitless clone was not the only divine ability. The most powerful offensive divine abilities were the divine descent of universe and the limitless supreme clarity sword formation. Divine descent of universe. A large number of limitless clones formed hand seals with the main body. Several huge, distorted Xian Guang formed waves in the Milky Way and charged into the square formations. Limitless supreme clarity sword formation. Su Fang formed hand seals again and attacked. He was an outsider, but he used Doichi's limitless Dao arts to the extreme. First, the divine descent of universe turned the Milky Way into a distorted state of attack. Then, countless vast sword chis attacked in succession. Behind the square formations, the central camp of the Xinyuan Empire. The great Emperor Dipper and the other 2 marquises said to the Xinyuan Empire, "Emperor, I didn't expect this kid to be so difficult to deal with. He used Doichi's divine abilities to such a high level. We have to start showing our true strength." After this exchange, the Xinyuan Emperor actually felt threatened. The enemy's aura is too strong. We should indeed suppress them. Give the order. Let the supreme experts of the Xinyuan Empire take the lead and suppress the enemy. Okay. The 3 marquises immediately transmitted their voices. At this moment, countless experts in the square formations probably received the order. Because, other than the square formations on the left, right, and back of the primordial god world, dozens of square formations in the front began to condense their auras. This aura came from the sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture. The Xinyuan Empire was going to use its true strength to suppress Su Fang and the others. Su Fang and the Big Goblin were using all sorts of mystical abilities and methods to open a path for the experts behind them. The phalanxes in the depths, as well as the surrounding phalanxes, suddenly released the familiar aura of the Sage Emperor's Divine Origin scripture. Then, one of the phalanxes suddenly released an astonishing giant barrier. Has the Xinyuan Empire finally unleashed its strongest power, one of the great divine abilities of the sacred tyrant body, Sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture? Upon seeing this, Su Fang secretly transmitted a voice transmission. The Xinyuan Empire has begun to use the Saint Emperor's Divine Origin scripture as their main attack. Everyone has been cultivating this mystical ability during this period of time. The Xinyuan Empire still doesn't know that we have already grasped their cultivation technique. Although they have the advantage in numbers, we don't have to be afraid of them. On the other hand, the heavenly holy tyrant body that was displayed by a large number of experts were countless golden-armored giants. They joined together and roared in the sky. The other phalanxes gradually released similar barriers, especially the phalanxes that the 6 big goblins were attacking. Part of their attacks were blocked by the giant barrier, and they couldn't kill as many experts as before. Hum, 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 as the golden-armored giants' barriers expanded in the galaxy, the phalanxes fused together and formed a phalanx of Emperor Qi. Sacred Master's Fist. Suddenly, Su Fang saw the golden-armored phalanxes and the countless golden-armored giants unleash huge golden fist prints that filled the sky. They charged toward the 6 big goblins and the galaxy that he was in. Su Fang was very shocked to see what kind of mystical ability it was. He saw the phalanxes and the golden fist prints that crossed the galaxy. Only then did he realize the true strength of the Xinyuan Empire. It was hard to resist. Even so, the 6 big goblins shot out beams of light from their Tao artifacts, combined with their own demonic aura and poison, and killed the terrifying Golden Fist Prince. Su Fang released the power of the world and used the ethereal truth to display the sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture. Suddenly, many golden-armored giants appeared in the galaxy in front of the Golden Fist Prince. Although they weren't as strong as the Xinyuan Empire, they also unleashed a powerful sacred master's fist. How does Su Fang know the supreme mystical ability of the imperial family of our empire? It must be those traitors like Qin Yuanhou and Crown Prince Zhen Hua, who revealed the sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture to Su Fang. It was the same sacred master's fist and the same heavenly holy tyrant body. The upper echelons of the imperial family were shocked. Everyone was shocked and angry. After all, Su Zhenhua and Qin Yuanhou were following Su Fang. If they didn't tell Su Fang, how could someone use such a mystical ability? However, Su Fang's strength was too weak. Under the sacred master's fist, a large part of his heavenly holy tyrant body was shattered. He almost coughed up blood from the shock. The other phalanxes also used the sacred master's fist and released huge golden giant. They held long sabers and huge swords and surrounded the 6 big goblins. Su Fang was also gradually surrounded by these huge golden-armored giants. The phalanxes all unleashed their heavenly holy tyrant body. There were so many of them that they occupied the galaxy. What a shocking scene! Even the 6 big goblins were trapped. Su Fang could only defend and break free from the encirclement. The gap between them and the primordial god world was becoming more and more obvious. Fortunately, the giants at the back led their experts to the front of the phalanxes. They also used the heavenly holy tyrant body and attacked the phalanxes. Both sides started to fight in the galaxy. Everyone, you guys stay here to suppress the Xinyuan Empire's army. I'll bring the 6 big goblins and attack the Imperial family's camp. As long as we attack the Imperial family's camp, the other phalanxes won't be able to be controlled. Su Fang, who was surrounded, felt a little more relaxed. After transmitting his voice to the giants, he immediately released the supreme Tao artifact's divine power and used the illusory fire cloud. The flames broke through the golden-armored giants. He used the flaming cloud wings and the flaming cloud step. In front of him, he used the supreme killing Dharma treasure, Starlight Sword, and began to cut through all obstacles. He even opened a path for the 6 big goblins. The 6 big goblins roared and rushed towards him. They directly shattered the golden fist mark and shattered the barrier. They began to pass through the phalanxes and attacked the Imperial family's phalanxes with the divine power of the Tao artifact. In the Imperial family's camp, many of the giants released their auras. The great Emperor Dipper led a large number of experts. Kill this kid and the big goblin. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators behind us will no longer be a threat. The Origin God Emperor frowned. This person is very powerful to be able to use the Tao artifact to such an extent. The 6 big goblins also have 6 Tao artifacts. This is the most difficult to deal with. Take the initiative to attack. Set up the formation. At this moment, the Third Lord finally made his move. The Origin God Emperor and countless experts were left to protect him. The Third Lord led the giants under him and flew out of the Imperial family's camp. A large number of giants from the Origin God world charged over. Heavenly Emperor Incineration. The moment he attacked, he used one of the peerless divine abilities from the sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture, Heavenly Emperor Incineration. A huge explosion like a starburst formed in the starry river that Su Fang was rushing towards. The power of the explosion tore many black holes in the starry river. Su Fang and the 6 big goblins were immediately caught in the center of the explosion's power. The vortex formed in the galaxy. From afar, it looked like a terrifying storm that could destroy the world. This is the power that the Xinyuan Empire should have when it reached the peak of a small world. The surrounding power was enough to tear apart any of the 3 Calamity Realm giants. Su Fang and the 6 big goblins seemed to have fallen into a desperate situation. A young girl's voice came from the depths of the galaxy. "Brother, do you want me to make a move first?" Su Fang replied, "I will let the Vermilion Emperor make a move. Its strength is about the same as yours, but its wrath of the demon god cannot reach the level of the heavenly neck spirit ring. The Xinyuan Empire is indeed powerful, but no matter how powerful it is, it cannot surpass a small world and have the power of an immortal." Bai Ling and the Undying Tortoise were his trump cards. They were the 2 strongest helpers by his side. They were hidden in order to deal with Jing Suifeng and Immortal Master Ling Exen. Humph! A monster that was as strong as a bull roared out from among the monsters. Pig Horse King it attacked again. Flaming demonic patterns appeared on its demonic body, and its skin seemed to be made of magma. It was about to be swallowed and crushed by the terrifying power. As the only ancient mutated beast, the Vermilion Emperor could shoot out the wrath of the demon god. This Tao artifact was of extraordinary quality. It was also an inherited Dharma treasure. The Vermilion Emperor could use it to a very terrifying level. It was fine if it was not angry. Once it was angry, thunder rumbled. The wrath of the demon god was like a broom. It moved like a rabbit in the void. It hit the attacking forces facing the royal family masters. It was like an unparalleled sharp blade, creating a path. Swish! Swish! Su Fang and the 5 big goblins immediately stepped on the wrath of the demon god and followed the Vermilion Emperor and the Tao artifact's attack. They moved closer to the royal family masters through the path. Heavenly Emperor Incineration. The 3 marquises did not expect Su Fang and the other big goblins to be able to kill their way out in such a desperate situation. At the same time, they were also shocked by the wrath of the demon god. Under the command of the 3 marquises, the royal family masters used the Heavenly Emperor's divine origin scripture, the Heavenly Emperor Incineration. Tens of thousands of royal family masters, under the coordination of the surrounding square formation, suddenly blasted out tens of thousands of feet. It was like a violently shaking golden belt of stars in the galaxy. This belt of stars extended without restraint and rolled toward the wrath of the demon god. Boom, boom, boom. Tens of thousands of royal family masters fought against the wrath of the demon god. Neither side gained the upper hand and could instantly suppress the other. Immortal branding blade of astral annihilation. Just as the 2 sides were at a stalemate. Another big goblin, no, it was a demon wielding a Tao artifact. Wooling Goblin. He slashed out 1,000 feet long blade aura with both hands, hitting the terrifying power of the incinerating star belt that was resisting the wrath of the demon god. In a breath, the galaxy trembled. The immortal aura of the 2 Tao artifacts blasted the belt of stars into 2. Su Fang led the big goblin and charged forward again. Big Dipper Storm. Su Fang led the big goblin and charged toward the Xinyuan Empire step by step. Countless giants in the rear finally charged into the square formation. Among them, the green-robed King Green Feather killed in front of tens of thousands of experts. Especially after going through the Xianjia Gate, his strength had long surpassed the former Old Toad deity, Sky Drill Rat Emperor and other big goblin. He unleashed multiple gusts of wind, which galloped into the Divine Origin Empire's formation like an army of thousands of men and horses. In an instant, he killed over 100 strong practitioners and sent thousands of strong practitioners flying in all directions. In the surrounding galaxy, the Lord of 5 Poisons, Li Ziqing, Li Haojie, Su Zhenhua, Elder Heizun, and other giants led tens of thousands of experts and were breaking the square formation step by step. In particular, they were very familiar with the Divine Emperor Divine Origin Scripture. Once the Xinyuan Empire used any divine ability, they could take measures to deal with it. I really didn't expect that the Xinyuan Empire, which has dominated the small world for so many years, would be forced to this point today. Behind the royal family, Emperor Xinyuan saw this and suddenly, after nodding, the three princes, who were leading tens of thousands of royal family masters to block Su Fang and the other big goblin, showed a grim smile. Rise! After the three formed a seal. Behind the royal family, a huge portal rose from the barrier of the divine origin world. Tao Artifact. In an instant, Su Fang, King Greenfeather, Li Haojie, Elder Heizun, Su Zhenhua, and other giants were attracted by the portal. Su Zhenhua immediately transmitted his voice to everyone. This is the nation artifact of the divine origin world, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Master, be careful. The divine origin world is obviously suppressing us, but they used this Tao artifact at this time to kill us with the strongest means and end this war. Chapter 846. The Nation Artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Hearing Su Zhenhua's thought, Su Fang felt goosebumps all over his body. He immediately sent a message to the other expert. The Xinyuan Empire's nation artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword, is extremely powerful. With the power of an entire nation and a small world, the power of this Tao artifact is unimaginable. Everyone, prepare your Dharma artifact. Whether it was the 6 big goblin or the giants behind them, they all activated their Dharma artifact. Above the primordial god world, all of a sudden, the portal turned into a cauldron made from the burning of magical power and spiritual energy. In the cauldron, there was a golden sword surrounded by starlight. The cauldron became bigger and bigger, burning more and more fiercely. It was as if the power of the sword could instantly shatter the cauldron and soar into the sky. Su Fang used the omnipotent power of the world in the river of stars to look at the cauldron and all the changes around it. What he saw with his naked eye was a cauldron rising from the portal. But what he saw was an indescribable power surging from the primordial god world into the cauldron and being absorbed by the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Even the experts outside the primordial god world were releasing the mysterious Dharma power and true Qi cultivated from the Divine Emperor's primordial god scripture. The cauldron was absorbing the power of the primordial god world and countless cultivators. It was supported by Dharma power and faith. Flying sword killing across the sky. Flying sword across the sky. Flying sword invincible. It's too powerful. The power of the Astrolabe Immortal Sword has reached the level of an immortal. In this small world, the power of the Astrolabe Immortal Sword is even stronger than the power of the immortals in the immortal realm. It was fine if he couldn't see it. The key was that Su Fang could see any signs of energy surging in the river of stars. The nation artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword, was absorbing endless power from the primordial god world and countless experts. The primordial god world must have spent countless years to create this Tao artifact. Whoosh whoosh, the 6 big goblins immediately activated their Tao artifacts and came to Su Fang's side. The Astrolabe Immortal Sword was pushed to a height higher than everyone present. Even the Vermilion Emperor was unable to push the demon god's wrath to such a terrifying height. That was because this was a nation weapon. It was the power of billions of cultivators and the origin of a small world. No matter how strong the Vermilion Emperor and Su Fang were, they could not compare to a world and billions of cultivators. Buzz, from the starry skies of the origin god world, a sword light suddenly erupted. Everyone was first shaken by the sword chime to the point that their ears were trembling. Then, a dazzling sword radiance appeared in front of their eyes, occupying the starry sky. The nation artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword, flew out from the cauldron. At this moment, indescribable sword runes appeared on the cauldron. This was probably a sword cauldron. The appearance of the Astrolabe Immortal Sword shook the starry sky, as expected of a peerless national treasure. Moreover, Su Fang's eyes twitched. Immediately, He and the 6 big goblin activated their Tao treasures at the same time. As they intertwined, the immortal sword, which was still far away in the starry sky, suddenly crossed space and arrived. Its speed was so fast that it was unimaginable in this mini-world. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the nation artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword, had already killed Su Fang and the other 6 Tao treasures. Any one of them had heaven-defying strength. They did not expect that their combined defense would be pushed back hundreds of feet by the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Whoosh! Fortunately, they managed to block the attack of the Immortal Sword. But in the next second, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword passed through the sky like a flash of starlight and arrived above the experts behind them. Boom! Damn it! He thought that the countless royals of the Origin God world would use the Astrolabe Immortal Sword to deal with him first. He did not expect that it would attack him from behind. When he turned around, he saw the Astrolabe Immortal Sword exploding with sword waves that were tens of thousands of feet long. Layers of explosions engulfed tens of thousands of experts. This sword could probably kill thousands of experts. Any Calamity Realm powerhouse without Tao treasures or special abilities would definitely die under the power of the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Su Fang's heart was bleeding. Although most of these people were suppressed by him, they had become his subordinate. Naturally, he felt like his heart was being pierced by needles when they died under the sword. Fortunately, he was pleasantly surprised. He quickly led the 6 big goblin back. It turned out that under the sword waves, there were huge 5 poisons monsters that exploded in the sky. Under the sword waves, they shattered and exploded one after another. The Lord of 5 Poisons. Above the tens of thousands of experts, the Lord of 5 Poisons in a black robe, with the power of a Tao treasure, tried to hold up the sky with both hands. A large number of 5 poisons monsters stacked together to fight against the 5 poisons monsters that were slashing down from the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. If it were not for the Tao treasure, the Lord of 5 Poisons' strength, and the 5 Poisons' true body, most of the tens of thousands of experts around him would have died. But the Lord of 5 Poisons also seemed to be injured. The poison patterns were self-destructing. Clang! In a flash, the demon god's wrath serpent came and hit the Astrolabe Immortal Sword in time. The 2 Tao treasures shook off each other. But the Astrolabe Immortal Sword did not want to let go of the chance to kill anyone. It went to the other side, where there were many experts, and the sword marks it left behind were like a storm. Stop the sword. It has gathered the power of a nation and can be used continuously. Although the Lord of 5 Poisons was injured, it was not serious. But his true chi was greatly depleted. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. The reason why he could block this attack was because of his understanding of the primordial god world. Swish! The nation treasure Astrolabe Immortal Sword flew through the sky, leaving a trail of sword chi in the sky. It was too fast. If it was not fast, the Lord of 5 Poisons would not be in such a difficult situation. Not to mention the power of the sword itself, even the sword chi formed by it was enough to make many experts' scalps numb and their true chi collapse. Tut, tut, tut. The Astrolabe Immortal Sword was like a sword that came from the heavens. It was as fast as lightning, and the tens of thousands of experts below had just reacted when they were crushed by the sword chi. They were unable to breathe, and the Astrolabe Immortal Sword itself had already caused the skin of many cultivators to tear. Death. It was about to descend in the next second. The sword chi flew through the air. Hundreds of people had already died to the sword chi. Boom. In less than a breath's time, not only hundreds of people were killed, but most of the tens of thousands of people below were either injured or killed. A human figure suddenly grabbed out a sword chi chain, and with a sword strike, he was suddenly lifted up in midair, and was heavily pressed down by the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. The Tao artifact's pressure caused the sword chi chain to collapse and split it in two. The Astrolabe Immortal Sword killed its way through the fleeing expert. Fortunately, most of them reacted and left the Tao artifact's attack range. Even so, in less than 2 breaths' time, 1,000 people were killed by the astrolabe immortal sword, and another 1,000 were heavily injured. So powerful! A green-robed figure arrived just in time. The sword chi chain was still around him. It turned out that the sword chi chain had come from this big shot, King Greenfeather. He looked at the corpses all around him, and then at the Lord of 5 Poisons, Su Fang, and the other big shot. He waved his arm and said, "This king will deal with the astrolabe immortal sword. It won't be a problem to hold it back, but you must buy time. Don't let the primordial god world use this Tao artifact again. Otherwise we will be defeated by this Tao artifact." Peng King, the Lord of 5 Poisons, was the first to stop. He understood that instead of everyone focusing on dealing with the Tao artifact, it was better to let one expert hold the Tao artifact while the others tried to break through the primordial god world. Without the support of the primordial god world's national power, there would not be such a powerful Tao artifact. Otherwise, it would not solve the problem of dealing with the Tao artifact. "Senior, I'll leave it to you." Su Fang nodded in the air. He led the 6 big goblin and the other experts. They no longer cared about the astrolabe immortal sword and turned to attack the royal family's formation. Looking at the corpses of King Greenfeather and the other experts leaving, his back looked majestic in the galaxy. Even so, he still felt somewhat lonely. Boom! At this time, the astrolabe immortal sword once again reached the center of a large number of experts and killed thousands of them, causing many to lose the ability to fight. If this continued, in less than half a day, the hundreds of thousands of experts brought by Su Fang would completely lose the power to fight against the primordial god world. Here, King Greenfeather suddenly released the peerless Tao artifact, Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword. He took out several immortal stones and inserted them into the immortal sword. Stepping on the immortal sword, King Greenfeather shuttled through the galaxy. These people underestimated the national artifact of our empire. The astrolabe immortal sword has been cultivating in our empire for thousands of years. How powerful is it? Even if an immortal came here, he could not shake the primordial god world. Only one cultivator to deal with the national artifact. Could it be that this person is stronger than an immortal? I think they are completely at their wits' end. On the royal family's side, many dukes and princes floated in the air, using the sacred Emperor Divine Origin scripture to support the astrolabe immortal sword. Woo! In the starry sky, a huge mountain made of green Yao Qi suddenly appeared behind the astrolabe immortal sword that was constantly attacking. A mountain. No, it was a huge green pung. It had a huge body, and with a single flap of its wings, it could pass through a large number of galaxies. Pung. Legend has it that this was the peerless emperor of the ancient Yao race. It's actually true. Countless cultivators in the primordial god world were astonished. Clang. After King Greenfeather released his true body, he was able to catch up to the astrolabe immortal sword with the help of Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword. Moreover, just as the astrolabe immortal sword was about to attack and kill a large number of experts, Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword slashed at the astrolabe immortal sword, causing it to lose most of its sword chi. King Greenfeather came to the top of a large number of experts who were frightened. Thunder roared, "You don't have to worry about this Tao artifact. Follow the Realm Lord to the primordial god world." Hua, hua, hua. These experts no longer hesitated. Seeing that the astrolabe immortal sword was blocked by King Greenfeather, they swarmed towards the primordial god world. Buzz! The astrolabe immortal sword's sword chi suddenly became stronger and attacked to the side. However, Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword followed behind, protecting a large number of experts. The two peerless Tao artifact immortal swords were actually facing each other. It seemed that the artifact spirits were competing, and both were extraordinary Tao artifacts. King Greenfeather suddenly said, "Astrolabe immortal sword, You are very extraordinary, but I believe that my Lord of Heaven's soul sword is even more extraordinary. It is meaningless for us to fight. Astrolabe Immortal Sword's voice came from the void. I was refined by the primordial god imperial family, and brought from the upper realm to the lower realm. I was planted in the primordial god world, and merged with the imperial family's bloodline. They are equivalent to my master. You can follow us to the upper realm. The Xinyuan Empire will merge with you and make you a national weapon, but in reality, you will never be able to return to the upper realm. This is my fate. Artifacts are different from living beings. We are refined with countless divine abilities and seals. We do not have the 7 emotions and 6 desires of humans. We only recognize masters. Stubborn, huh? I have merged with the primordial god world. I will not betray you. But I will not let you harm the cultivators on my side. Not necessarily. I exist to serve the Jing clan. Clang. In a flash, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword attacked the other side. However, Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword rushed over to stop it. The 2 peerless Tao artifact flying swords began to clash in the air with the same speed and power. A Pring King is killing his way into the imperial family's formation. Su Fang looked behind and was filled with killing intent. The imperial family's formation was right in front of them. Chapter 847. Time. Not only for himself, but also for the countless experts. Look, please move. Especially for the Green Feather King. No matter how extraordinary he was, it was impossible for him to fight against a peerless Tao artifact that had the power of an entire country combined. If he didn't seize the time to break into the primordial god world, the Rock King would be in danger. Rumble. Ahead. A large number of golden-armored giants appeared in the Star River, releasing the aura of an emperor. The 3 lords led a large number of royal family members, at least 100,000 people, to gather the phalanxes behind the primordial god world to block Su Fang and the other giants. Su Fang didn't hold back. Absorbing the power of the Tao artifact, fusing with the power of the giants around him, and using the Holy Emperor Divine Origin Scripture, together with the Flesh Fetus Divine Armor, Su Fang fused his various abilities. 6 fan clones. Facing countless golden-armored giants, Su Fang understood the Holy Emperor Divine Origin Scripture so well. How could he not have a countermeasure? He absorbed the power of the surroundings, mostly from the more than 20,000 big goblin in the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. 6 10,000-foot-tall giants appeared in front of him. Their bodies were pagodas, and because their bodies were divided into 6 levels, it was obvious that they used the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda as the source to display a peerless divine ability. They also fused the ethereal true scripture, the limitless Tao art, the Holy Emperor Divine Origin Scripture, the illusory fire cloud, the heavenly demon disintegration seal, and many other divine abilities. It turned out that his strength and ability had reached the peak of perfection. Qi. The 6 pagodas once again used the Holy Sovereign Fist, advancing in front of Su Fang and the other giants, and punching the thousands of golden-armored giants. The 2 sides were once again in a huge explosion. Before Su Fang and the other authorities could recover from their shock, numerous experts from the Imperials, all of whom had 3 Tao of Calamity, and wielded magical treasures that were almost on the same level as the Xianhuang 6 Daos Pagoda, charged towards Su Fang and the others. This is what I've been waiting for. One by one, the tycoons rushed out from the left and right before Su Fang. Each of them fought against several of the imperial family's experts. Su Fang's target was not these ordinary opponents. Under the cover of the 6 big goblin, he managed to carve out a path through the ranks of the royal family experts. Familiar faces appeared in front of him. Su Fang, he said, this king will kill you here and now. Years ago, this king was careless and allowed you to ambush him, causing him to lose his true self. The man in the center was the great Emperor Dipper, an old acquaintance of Su Fang. He controlled the emperor's qi. Around him were 2 marquises, as well as many marquises, generals, and hermits of the royal family. Great Emperor Dipper. Su Fang waved his hand. You're no match for me, and you're not qualified to fight with me. You've already lost. Is that so? This sovereign will personally kill you. Buzz. The great Emperor Dipper had actually used his Tao artifact, Immortal Light. Furthermore, his cultivation had surpassed 3 calamity grades, becoming in existence on par with the sect master. So what if you have a Tao artifact? Suddenly, a young man also released his emperor's qi. He brought out his Tao artifact, the Xian Guang, and attacked with a holy sovereign's fist. His target was the great Emperor Dipper. You unfilial son. The great Emperor Dipper also used his holy sovereign's fist to attack Su Zhenhua. So this was an old acquaintance. The former crown prince had followed Su Fang into the primordial god world. Rumble, an even more powerful wave of demonic poison, followed behind Su Zhenhua. The 9-segment Earth Dragon and the other big goblin worked together to protect Su Fang. They followed the wave of demonic poison into the midst of the royal family experts, directly bypassing the 3 marquises. Hee, old man Big Dipper, I'm no longer the crown prince of the past. I'm free now. You're my opponent. The 3 marquises hastily ordered their experts to retreat. But Su Zhenhua's Tao artifact and the cooperation of the other experts made it so that most of the royal family experts could only stay where they were. One of the marquises roared, You unfilial son, you're courting death. I'm no longer the crown prince of the past. My name is Su Zhenhua, and I am Su Zhenhua. Brotherly, keep these people busy. Su Zhenhua was incomparably powerful as he faced a large number of royal family experts. All of a sudden, he cried out in alarm. A dozen big goblins suddenly appeared in the air. Li Haojie released his Tao artifact and followed Su Zhenhua to the center of the royal family experts, suppressing over 10,000 experts. Kill. The 6 big goblins protected Su Fang, constantly opening a path. A large number of royal family experts shot out arrows, but the big goblin's demonic poison and innate abilities repelled most of their attacks. The Wooling Goblin occasionally shot out a large amount of stone to block all kinds of attack. It also condensed into stone spikes that attacked like a storm. Not a single expert was able to get within 30 meters of Su Fang. Not far away, above the primordial god world, royal qi intertwined, forming an emperor domain. A large area of the starry sky ahead was exploding. Several experts came before the primordial god emperor. Emperor, the enemy has more than 10,000 experts, and they have already broken through the formation created by the 3 marquises. Dozens of powerful experts are following Su Fang to the front defense. They will be here soon. The primordial god emperor stroked his beard. They are going all out. Emperor, according to the previous temporary plan, we allowed the enemy to charge forward while our countless formations waited on both sides. Now that they have charged into the center of the formation, we have a large number of formations around us that have blocked the Milky Way behind us. They have already fallen into the ambush that we had planned. Our troops are all around them, and there are more than 10 million of them. They only have a few 100,000 people, and they have been heavily injured by the nation weapon. Many of them have lost their ability to fight. Young people always have to pay a price. Furthermore, each of them is as arrogant as the Lord of 5 Poisons, charging into the center of our formation without any fear. They want to take this emperor's head. They are dreaming, but in the end it is nothing but a pipe dream. Behind this emperor is the primordial god world. For tens of millions of years, generations of emperors have racked their brains to create this powerful situation. Immediately order the outer formations to fire at the center according to the plan. There is no need to worry about our own people, especially those who do not have the royal bloodline. They are all recruited cultivators, as well as cultivators from the immortal primordial world. Even if there are members of the royal family, it is a great honor for them to die defending the empire. This subordinate will immediately give the order to the generals guarding the outer perimeter. After the experts bowed, they formed seals in front of the primordial god emperor. The primordial god emperor personally formed special yellow seals and added them to the seals. Many hermits in the surroundings requested, "Emperor, please retreat into the world's barrier. The enemy has already been surrounded. Our royal experts can slaughter them all." If I wasn't here, how could I attract the attention of these fanatics? The reason they've come here without regard for anything else is because they want to kill me. Once they kill the emperor, the primordial god world will become theirs. You don't have to worry about this emperor. This emperor is just one of the countless emperors of the royal family. In addition, this emperor has supreme immortals guarding this world. This emperor has nothing to worry about. This emperor also wants to let everyone see how this emperor suppresses these ignorant fools. The primordial god emperor's aura was like a sharp blade. With a wave of his hand, the throne disappeared. The yellow robe on his body suddenly turned into armor. This armor. It was actually the same as the Chilan Emperor armor. It was a Tao artifact. With the Tao artifact, the primordial god emperor completely replaced the aura of this galaxy. He was truly worthy of being the realm lord, the emperor. At this moment, Su Fang was less than 100 miles away from the Xinyuan Empire under the demonic poison storm released by the 6 Big Goblin. Almost at the same time, the phalanxes around the primordial god world began to quickly encircle them. The experts who had already been surrounded were now completely surrounded by the Xinyuan Empire. There's no need to stop them. Just follow the previous plan and slowly encircle them. Our empire is an impregnable fortress. Make sure they don't return. A large number of royal family experts were gathering troops to attack Su Fang and the other big goblin. The primordial god emperor waved his hand in the air and suddenly smiled. Immortal clouds condensed from his emperor chi suddenly burst out from under his feet. Immortal clouds dominated by immortal light, making him look like an immortal. No, this was the aura he released when his cultivation reached the peak and he absorbed the resources of a great world all year round to cultivate an astonishing immortal spirit body. Primordial God Emperor. What came rolling over was Su Fang's unparalleled majestic voice. It suddenly meandered over from the center of the battlefield. Today, one of us will definitely fall here. Do you have the guts to fight me? The primordial god emperor was taken aback for a moment. Then, he chuckled coldly and said, "Ignorant brat, you don't have the guts to fight me. I'm not going to challenge you. I'm not going to fight you." That's exactly what I wanted. Su Fang ordered the 6 big goblins to stop advancing and instead focus on killing the experts around them. Then, he headed toward the primordial god emperor on his immortal cloud. As he unleashed his illusory fire cloud, a pair of fiery wings appeared on his back, and his energy and sealing marks began to transform. Clearly, the primordial god emperor was much stronger than the world lord of immortal Grand Mist. He was on the same level as World Lord Zhuotian and the 6 lords of fertility and lust. 100 kilometers. Before they knew it, the two of them were less than 5 kilometers apart. True to his word, the primordial god emperor stepped onto his immortal cloud and unleashed a fist strike. You seem to know a lot about the energy arts of the imperial clan, but I refuse to believe that an outsider like you would be able to use them. Holy Paragon's fist. What an impressive world lord, Yang Qi said. Even in the middle of a river of stars, your divine abilities are limited. Holy Paragon's fist. It was the same move, the same attack, and the same river of fist. The 2 fist techniques slammed into each other in the middle of the river of stars. Both were filled with the energy of the emperors of the Xinyuan Empire. Pop! The shock waves were like 2 walls, and as they spread out, they unleashed a terrifying destructive energy. Most people would have chosen to dodge and wait for the shock waves to fade away. But the primordial god emperor had a Tao item to protect himself, and was able to tear open 2 holes in the shockwave. Then, he unleashed a large-scale star-shattering explosion to try to consume Su Fang. He was simply too strong. Su Fang unleashed the flaming cloud steps and his flaming cloud wings, pushing himself to the limit. Now that he had the power of 3 tribulation emperors, the god power of his Tao item began to explode. He also unleashed a large-scale star-shattering explosion to open up a wide gap. Clearly, Su Fang was weaker than the primordial god emperor. After a huge explosion, Emperor Shenyuan actually arrived in front of Su Fang in a tyrannical manner. Bam! The starry daylight sword turned into a sword shadow and slashed at the primordial god emperor's Tao item defense. The 2 experts were facing each other in the middle of the river of stars. Their eyes were filled with the aura of the other. Pop! The next second, the starry daylight sword was destroyed by the defensive aura released by the Tao item armor. Die! The primordial god emperor grabbed with his left hand, and a suction force enveloped Su Fang, pulling Su Fang towards him. The 5 fingers of his right hand rumbled and turned into an eagle's claw, grabbing at Su Fang's head. This time, it was a true world lord. World God image. The suction force from the primordial god emperor was the power of a world lord, releasing it into the river of stars and controlling it. On this point, Su Fang was confident that he was not much weaker than him. He immediately exploded, and a crack appeared in front of the primordial god emperor's claw. Su Fang took the opportunity to dodge. Chapter 848. This crack caused Su Fang to flash past Emperor Shenyuan's fingertips, narrowly avoiding shaving his head. Look, please move. Emperor Shenyuan's 5 fingers caused the starry sky to tremble. He looked at Su Fang in surprise. I didn't expect you to have the world chi of the Shenyuan Empire in your body. 1 mile away, Su Fang used fire cloud steps and flashed away. Impressive. You can sense the world chi of the primordial god world from my control of the Star River. I thought you were relying on the world chi of the human emperor world to contend against me. So you have already stolen my empire's power. What do you mean by stealing? Back then, I only used my methods to snatch the world chi from the 3rd prince and the spirit camel immortal cauldron. Su Fang was not polite. After that, I killed the great Emperor Dipper in the Zhuotian realm and obtained his golden core. Then, I killed the 3rd prince in the human emperor world and obtained his power. This is a free gift from you. You actually obtained my empire's power from a corpse. Emperor Shenyuan was in disbelief. He seemed to transfer his anger to the great Emperor Dipper. The 3rd prince is just a useless ado. I will treat it as if I don't have a son. Fortunately, he is my flesh and blood. I will definitely tear you to pieces. How can we cultivators be afraid of death? It's good to be young and frivolous. Even if cultivation is eternal, I, Su Fang, will still be proud and unyielding. If you have the ability, I will not have any resentment even if I die in your hands. Don't be smug. The Shenyuan Empire was probably infuriated again. No, this time it was truly infuriated. The Tao artifact armor on his body emitted a large amount of defensive aura. He took a step in the air, and the Star River within 3 miles, including Su Fang, burned with Emperor fire. What a powerful god image. This is probably a domain that only immortals can have. However, as long as it is not a true domain or a Tao domain, what can it do to me? I have to go above the primordial god world and attract more cultivators' attention to reduce the pressure on the people behind me. He fell into the Star River again. Emperor Shenyuan's thoughts stirred, and he pressed his hands together. Monarch fire burned around him, forming a golden-armored giant formed from the heavenly sage tyrant body. At the same time, each of them grabbed out streaks of sword aura, forming a battle form attack form, and shot towards Su Fang like a huge spinning top. Su Fang stepped out with his astonishing fire cloud step. The fire cloud steps was not the heaven-shaking divine steps of the immortal sealing sect. The heaven ruler divine steps was just a footwork technique, while the fire cloud steps was a movement technique and an offensive technique. Every step covered an astonishing distance. With Su Fang's current state, he could heavily injure a 3-step calamity overlord with a single step. The Starry River domain formed by the monarch Qi was broken. Fortunately, he also had the power of the Saint Emperor Divine Origin Scripture, which countered each other, making it easier for him to break through a large number of domains. By the time the attack landed, he had already rushed out of the domain and towards the primordial god world. Phew, it seemed that he couldn't kill Su Fang with a single strike. This was within Emperor Shenyuan's expectations. He stepped on immortal clouds, condensing a 30-foot-long spear, chasing after Su Fang relentlessly. Natal Magic Artifact. Sensing the great change in Emperor Shenyuan's aura, he turned around and saw that the spear in his hand was also of the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda quality, and it was also a natal magic artifact. This was the first time he had encountered a powerhouse with such a powerful natal magic artifact. Moreover, he could see the degree of fusion between the spear and Emperor Shenyuan's aura. Although it couldn't be compared to him and the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, it was still an existence that Su Fang had never seen before. What a peerless master! At this time, Su Fangda was flying towards the primordial god world. As expected, tens of thousands of royal family masters behind him moved towards the primordial god world from below. A large number of square formations around the primordial god world began to prepare to block Su Fang. Of course, Emperor Shenyuan wouldn't let him go. He was faster than Su Fang, especially in the Starry River around the primordial god world. His invisible control was terrifying, and his speed was clearly faster than Su Fang. Clang, the spear stabbed forward. It wasn't silent, but like a bolt of lightning. A sword ray blocked the spear in midair, and both magic artifacts were knocked away. At the same time that Su Fang grabbed the Starry Daylight sword, Emperor Shenyuan also grabbed his spear. Moreover, the surrounding space was burning with Emperor's qi. Emperor Shenyuan quickly flew over Su Fang's head, his spear held horizontally in midair. Su Fang, I am the Emperor and also the Realm Master. My ancestors cultivated here for tens of thousands of years, fusing with the world. That is why I can use the power of the world as a foundation to more or less control this starry sky. You are not my opponent here. To be able to come here is the first step to success. Su Fang held the Starry Daylight sword tightly. So, Emperor Shenyuan looked at the starry river in front of him in surprise. I understand now. You deliberately came above the primordial god world to attract the attention of my empire's tens of thousands of powerhouses. You've achieved your goal. You've reduced the pressure on the central cultivators, and it's easier for you to kill your way into the primordial god world. As expected of an emperor. You're so young, but you have such shrewdness and foresight. I really must kill you, but I can't bear to do so. If you become a disciple of my empire, I might even give you control of the immortal primordial world in the future. I'm not the kind of person who can be satisfied just by eating a piece of fat meat. The reason I'm standing here today is not to become a peerless overlord, but to prove that I can surpass the impossible and reach the end of a small world. In the future, I can also reach the end of a large world. It's not bad to have such ambition. You will die under my spear. Qi in an instant, the Shenyuan Empire attacked from the front. Under the control of the Emperor's qi, Su Fang was already suppressed, and this spear light was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea, abnormally fierce. Clang! Clang! The Starry Daylight sword left his hand, and it was able to resist the spear's attack. It directly struck the spear, ensuring Su Fang's safety. At this moment, the two experts began to fight in close combat, but they also used their magic treasures to fight from a distance. At this moment, at the other end of the Star River battlefield, the Star River where Su Fang and the other experts came from was already surrounded by the Xinyuan Empire's army. Among them, there were 50,000 people forming a phalanx formation, and they were charging towards the depths of the Human Emperor world. Human Emperor world. Su Yaotian and a large number of experts were affected by the shockwaves from the central battlefield from time to time. When they saw tens of thousands of experts charging towards them, they began to set up a large formation. It seemed that the Xinyuan Empire had already planned to take down the Human Emperor world in one fell swoop. There were no peerless experts guarding the Human Emperor world at this moment, only the family Su clansmen and tens of thousands of people in charge of refining pills were left. Not to mention the number of people, even their cultivation was inferior to the experts of the Xinyuan Empire, and the difference was not small. Su Yaotian looked at the surrounding experts. Even if we die, we will not let the Xinyuan Empire enter the Human Emperor world. Venerable Gu, Lan Haiqing, Xiao Mei'er, Supreme Venerable Demon King, Luan Mo, and other people also began to use their magic power. A familiar divine aura of a Tao artifact appeared in the void above everyone. It was the power of the divine image Jade Wall. It seemed that Su Fang was already prepared. He didn't leave behind any experts, but he left behind a method to deal with strong enemies. Master has ordered, all of you are to leave. Suddenly, in this desolate world, the only towering tree actually grew towards the sky with a terrifying sound. The heavenly gourd spirit tree was already an unbelievably huge spirit tree. Everyone leave. Su Yaotian was also very surprised. Everyone else was shocked by the heavenly gourd spirit tree's growth. They knew about the heavenly gourd spirit tree, but in their impression, it was just a spirit tree. But now it was completely a demon tree. Outside the Human Emperor world, tens of thousands of people were already crossing over. They should be the feudal lords of the primordial god world, and they were surrounded by cold armored generals. Mighty divine essence cannon was summoned. A general laughed disdainfully at the feudal lord, Lord Marquis, there are not many experts left in the Human Emperor world. We can completely not use the mighty divine essence cannon, we can just kill our way in and capture the cultivators alive to occupy the Human Emperor world. We cannot wantonly destroy the Human Emperor world. This way, Lord Marquis will be valued by the immortal venerable. Alright, the Human Emperor world is already riddled with holes. This Lord Marquis ordered the general to store the mighty divine essence cannon into a treasure. Next, tens of thousands of experts, almost all of them feather transformation realm experts, charged towards the Human Emperor world like a huge net. World's barrier. A huge spirit tree formed a mushroom-like canopy in the middle of the world's barrier. Su Fang's consciousness was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the canopy. An illusory voice sounded beside Su Fang's consciousness. Master, you don't have to worry. Just leave this place to me. With the divine image Jade Annulus and the world's origin, I can kill any expert from the mortal world. Then make sure these experts don't return, said the Avatar without the slightest expression. I won't disappoint you, Master. Countless tentacles began to grow from the canopy, forming a boundless sea of green leaves and vines. Looking up from the Human Emperor world, the heavenly gourd spirit tree had unexpectedly grown from the ground to the end of the world's barrier. Even the cultivators from the Human Emperor world were shocked. Boom! The world's barrier, which was close to 100 miles, was shattered by countless treasures and abilities. Tens of thousands of people from the Xinyuan Empire immediately charged into the Human Emperor world. But what they saw was not the resistance of the Human Emperor world, but a sea of trees. Strange, puzzled, these were the expressions of every expert. They still didn't know what these things were. They just flew into the sea of leaves. Buzzing. A ray of light from a Taoist artifact suddenly appeared from the broken world's barrier. It turned into a green glow and merged with the sea of leaves. Tens of thousands of people were enveloped in the sea of leaves. Such a change made many people uneasy. But they still forced themselves to travel through the sea of leaves, looking for the human emperor world cultivators to kill. Whoosh, 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 all of a sudden, the entire sea of leaves was like a stampede of 10,000 horses. It began to roll like the raging wave. Countless vines, similar to the seal chains, came out from the dense leaves and attacked each of the cultivators like arrows. The cultivators from the Xinyuan Empire had no time to react. Most of their defenses were shattered by the vines and their treasures were knocked away. In less than 2 breaths, they were entangled by the vines. But some of them took out their treasures to attack the vines and cut them off. Then, they began to run. But the vines grew out again after they were cut off. Above them, there was a seal formed by the Taoist artifact and the heavenly gourd spirit tree. Rustle, rustle. A large number of cultivators entangled by the vines were dragged out of the sea of leaves. In the blink of an eye, under the crown of the heavenly gourd spirit tree, the cultivators who were bound by the vines were suspended in the air like eggs laid by insects. More and more. Tens of thousands. Tens of thousands. The heavenly gourd spirit tree did not feel like a spirit tree or a demon tree. It had become a human tree. And it was not a human tree, but a demon tree. It was like a nest of insects. At first, the tree crown was still shaking, but the movement gradually disappeared. More and more human eggs were suspended in the air, reaching as many as 50,000. Moreover, the human eggs struggled at first, but soon blood came out. Before the blood dripped, it was absorbed by the vines. Buzzing. Tens of thousands of treasures scattered from the tree crown to the sky. Are our eyes playing tricks on us? In the air, Su Yaotian and tens of thousands of cultivators watched the astonishing human eggs turn into a human tree. They were dumbfounded. Was this still the heavenly gourd spirit tree? Haha, Emperor Xinyuan, you must know what happened to the tens of thousands of cultivators you sent to attack our human emperor world. Origin God World. Su Feng, under the attack of the spear shadow, sneered at the Emperor Xinyuan. The author's words, "The heavenly gourd spirit tree is going crazy, hee hee." Chapter 849. Emperor Xinyuan. The veins on his temples twisted like fried dough twists, and there was a hint of anger in his loftiness. I already knew that there would be a threat in the human emperor world. Wouldn't I have prepared something? Su Feng, who was dealing with the spear shadows, was still waving his starlight sword to resist. He even mocked the supreme emperor of the primordial god world. Go for wool and come home shorn. How can a mere tree demon resist my empire's army? Emperor Xinyuan's aura exploded. He estimated that a large number of Xinyuan Empire's experts would attack the human emperor world. Screech Su Feng once again flew towards the Star River above the primordial god world. He still needed to reduce the pressure on the experts and attract the attention of the Xinyuan Empire's expert. In the Star River behind him, there was smoke and explosions everywhere. The battlefield was circular, and the outside was filled with the Xinyuan Empire's troops. Mighty primordial god cannons gradually fired toward the center of the battlefield, accompanied by arrows. The battle was getting more and more intense. Clang! What you're doing is futile. You can't step into the primordial god world. In the Star River above the primordial god world, another large number of spear shadows rolled out, fighting with the swords in the Star River. Emperor Xinyuan released his Tao artifact, Immortal Light. Fortunately, the spear in his hand was not as strong as the Starlight Sword. If it was the Starlight Sword and a Tao artifact armor, then Su Feng would be suppressed by Emperor Xinyuan. Su Feng had fused the Starlight Sword to a very high degree, almost to the peak. Therefore, with his own strength, it was still possible to control Emperor Xinyuan's attacks. But the following attacks were even fiercer. Emperor Xinyuan released his absolute star domain, and the shackles were twice as strong as the previous Emperor Aura domain. Why was it so terrifying? Because he and Su Fang were above the primordial god world. The primordial god world was fused by Emperor Xinyuan, and he could secretly use the world energy of the primordial god world as a foundation to control the Star River above the world. Naturally, his control was more domineering than the Star River around the primordial god world. A large number of golden-armored giants formed the Emperor domain. They were also holding spears, forming a domain of nearly 10 miles. Boom! Near the center of the battlefield, suddenly 2 flying swords crossed the galaxy and clashed in the void. The 2 flying swords slaughtered their way through the Milky Way, but there was not a single cultivator within 100 miles of the Milky Way. This was because these 2 flying swords were Tao treasures that surpassed King-grade treasures. Country Artifact Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Heaven Monarch Soul Sword. This clash of swords created a destructive sword wave in the Milky Way, sweeping through the surrounding space. Even if there were 3 Calamity Realm sovereigns in this space, they would still be half dead. Any cultivator without the strength of 3 Calamity Realm sovereigns would die in the clash of Tao artifact. A huge shadow broke through the air. Soon after, Heaven Lord Soul Sword and Astrolabe Immortal Sword were blasted away. This huge shadow was Green Feather Monarch's true body. He opened his mouth and spat out a few immortal stones into Heaven Lord Soul Sword's sword body. The Heaven Monarch Soul Sword was a special magic treasure. As long as a cultivator could fuse with it and had immortal stones, they would be able to activate this Tao artifact. However, there were still high requirements for the cultivator's strength and Yang soul. However, it was much stronger than other Tao artifacts. As long as there were immortal stones, the Heaven Monarch of the Soul Sword would have an endless supply of energy to activate it. This was why Green Feather Monarch dared to control Heaven Lord Soul Sword alone to fight against Astrolabe Immortal Sword. If not for Heaven Lord Soul Sword's special characteristic, none of them would be able to fight against Astrolabe Immortal Sword for a long time. Su Fang, kid, you have to work hard. Green Feather Monarch once again controlled Heaven Lord Soul Sword to stop Astrolabe Immortal Sword from going deeper into the center. Its huge body was not as fast as before, and there were some sword wounds on its body. You clearly didn't have to come here. In the Milky Way above the primordial god world, I can use a stronger world shackle divine power. You know very well that you will be shackled here, but you still came. I don't know if you are really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. In the Milky Way above the primordial god world, it was not like the shocking explosions and shock waves in the central Milky Way. Instead, it was a golden giant shackle domain formed by countless golden-armored giants. Within the golden-armored giants' domain were the destructive shock wave. 2 peerless magic treasures and 2 peerless experts clashed again and again. This internal battle was just like the battle between Green Feather Monarch and Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Countless nothingness exploded, and Su Fang was shaken away. Suddenly, Emperor God Origin appeared behind him, and his speed was obviously faster than Su Fang's. Su Fang could only use the Fire Cloud Step and Fire Cloud Wings. Starry Daylight Sword released a lot of sword power, but Emperor God Origin suddenly went to the other side and grabbed at him with 5 fingers. Boom! 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 Su Fang's surroundings exploded again, and his face turned pale. Fortunately, he was not seriously injured. The reason why Emperor God Origin is so strong is just as he said. This is above the primordial god world, so his control of the Milky Way has reached a supreme level. He clutched his chest and looked at the terrifying golden-armored giant's domain around him. He felt as if he was trapped in the primordial god world. The power of the shackles was too terrifying, and it directly suppressed his speed, divine power, and even sensing ability. If he didn't have a perfected physical body, if he didn't have the ability, he wouldn't have been able to last until now. He had taken such a risk in order to attract all the attention of the primordial god world here, reducing the pressure on the hundreds of thousands of cultivators in the center of the battlefield. Releasing his perfected physical body, he could see the benefits of taking such a risk. As expected, the entire battlefield was constantly moving toward the primordial god world, especially the million-strong army of the primordial god world. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that dark clouds covered the sky. You have fallen into my absolute world domain. Here I am, the Supreme Emperor, the Supreme Ruler. Another large number of explosions erupted around Su Fang. Emperor God Origin's 5 fingers were constantly grabbing at him. He was displaying his divine power. Su Fang, you're digging your own grave. Do you think you can save them? I, Su Fang, haven't cultivated as long as you. I'm not an emperor. I'm not a flying immortal. I don't have an immortal backing me. But I, Su Fang, am proud and unyielding. Today, I came here alone because I'm afraid of death. I believe that through my own efforts, I can support the heavens with one hand and change my fate. No matter how strong you are, you can't casually kill me. Su Fang's body was covered in wounds from the explosions. Ever since he had obtained the Wu Tan domain, the Beichen zone, and the immortal primordial domain, this was the first time he had been injured to such an extent. Facing the immortal primordial domain Lord and Exian Daotian, he had the strength to fight alone. But now Emperor God Origin's strength had reached the peak of the primordial god world's realm. It could be said that even the 6 lords of fertility couldn't reach such a height. Su Fang was fighting in his domain. He was suppressed everywhere, and his life was in danger at any time. After a moment of anger, Su Fang activated his supreme ability. His body was surrounded by the holy Emperor God Origin's scriptures, Emperor Qi. With the help of his perfected physical body, he could fuse with and absorb Emperor God Origin's divine power, as well as the power of the primordial god world below. This was the shocking harvest he had obtained from cultivating the holy Emperor God Origin's scripture. When Emperor God Origin's hands reached out again, he found that the explosion wasn't as strong as before. Su Fang managed to dodge it in time. He frowned and said in surprise, "How is this possible? When I use my world domain, why is it constantly dissipating? It seems to be controlled by you." Blood trickled down from Su Fang's arms as he smiled calmly. "Don't forget that I've also cultivated the Saint Emperor Divine Origin scripture. You used the power of this skill as the foundation to cast the world shackles, allowing me to channel the same power and godly aura to fuse with your domain. What kind of ability is this?" Emperor God Origin couldn't believe it. "Can I tell you? Your question is too idiotic. Is it a Tao item? Or is it because you've absorbed the primordial god world's world energy to a very high level, and also because you're cultivating the holy Emperor God Origin scripture? If it wasn't for these reasons, you wouldn't be able to control my power. Haha, you can think of it as a Tao item." In the face of Emperor God Origin's shock and doubt, Su Fang naturally wouldn't tell him the real reason. "Don't be so smug. Even so, you're still shackled everywhere. After all, this is my domain. I can use the primordial god world's world energy to display the power of these shackles. But you can't use these shackles. Instead, you shackle me in this starry river. This is the difference between you and me, and also your fatal weakness." Overlord's fury. Emperor God Origin roared and activated his Tao item armor. He even threw out his spear to attack Su Fang. At the same time, he released his Tao item armor's divine power and charged at Su Fang. Golden astral flames interweaved around his body. He actually possessed such a terrifying Overlord's Qi. Under the protection of the Tao artifact and Imperial Qi flames, he spread open his arms, his fingers sharp and fierce like the claws of an eagle. As the spear clanged, he attacked Su Fang. At this moment, A sea of sharp fingerprints followed Emperor Xinyuan in close combat. It wasn't hard to imagine how terrifying the claw marks were when combined with the Tao item armor and Overlord's Qi. In addition, the spear and the Starry Daylight sword were clashing. Unable to use the Starry Daylight sword to block Emperor God Origin's attack, Su Fang could only use his Holy Sovereign's fist to resist the claw marks. But the claw marks rumbled and shattered a large area of the fist marks. The power of the Tao item and Overlord's Qi fused together made Emperor God Origin's strength clearly higher than before. Su Fang already had a hard time dealing with the Xinyuan Empire before, let alone now. Boom! In just a few breaths, the two had exchanged more than 100 blows. Su Fang's flesh fetus divine armor and heavenly sage tyrant body's defense were shattered layer by layer. On the other hand, Emperor God Origin's aura was like a rainbow, becoming more and more terrifying. Emperor God Origin's claw attacks were like two long snakes, constantly attacking. You're not far from death. I don't believe that your true Qi won't be exhausted. Your defense will continue to condense. No matter how many defenses you have, I will shatter them one by one. You think I'll die just because you say so? His defense was indeed shattered again and again under the impact of the claw attack. His physical body was also affected because the other party had a Tao item armor. If he didn't have it, his defense wouldn't have been shattered. But Emperor God Origin didn't know how powerful he was. His true Qi was abundant, and even the big goblin couldn't compare. Most importantly, he could also absorb the Overlord's Qi around him, as well as the void power in the stars. The stalemate continued. Su Fang didn't know how many times he used his Holy Sovereign's fist. Emperor God Origin didn't know how many times he clawed. The two were like madmen, like beasts, fiercely snatching each other's food. The battle had reached such a primitive stage. One could imagine that life and death were beckoning to the two at any time. At this point, even Emperor God Origin didn't expect Su Fang's combat strength to exceed his expectations. Overall, Su Fang was still at a disadvantage. Once he didn't condense his defense in time, his physical body would be destroyed by the claw mark. Divine Essence, Sword Essence. His physical defense was shattered once again. Emperor God Origin saw this opportunity and suddenly shot out a supreme sword Qi full of Tao items. It pierced through the claw attacks and forcibly penetrated Su Fang's broken defense. Chapter 850. The dignified Emperor Xinyuan's attack was like a falcon swooping down on a rabbit, fast and accurate. Please move aside. Crack poo. His defenses had already been shattered, and before his new defenses could be strengthened, the immortal light sword Qi of this Tao treasure pierced through all his defenses. A portion of the sword Qi's power pierced into Su Fang's chest. His entire body was sent flying by the whirlpool formed by the claw. At this moment, Emperor Xinyuan's monarch aura was intertwined with a Tao artifact's monarch aura. He ignored everything. I said your death is near, but you didn't believe me. The next second, Su Fang barely managed to stop himself in midair. Blood continued to flow. I've fought with several world lords. Even the grand immortal world lord is far from being as strong as you. He trembled as he finished speaking. He looked at his chest. There was a finger-deep, fist-sized hole. It should have been a sword wound, but because the sword energy had exploded when it pierced his body, it had blown such a large hole in his chest. Blood flowed out. What kind of body is this? You can still hold on. You should only have half a life left. No, you should be dead. Emperor Xinyuan stepped forward. He controlled the golden-armored giant domain and looked at Su Fang in shock. I rarely meet an opponent who can force me into a corner. Emperor Xinyuan, you are Su Fang's last strong opponent after entering the great world. You are a mountain. I will surpass you. You are the overlord of a small world. I will replace you. Only by surpassing you can I be considered a mortal cultivator standing at the peak of a small world. With this ambition, I, Su Fang, will definitely become an extraordinary immortal in the future." His words were like the roar of a tiger. Su Fang didn't look like a seriously injured cultivator. Instead, he was full of spirit and incomparably hale and hearty. Emperor Xinyuan laughed. "Replace me, surpass me. Boy, your strength is extraordinary. I also admit that. If it weren't for the power of the world, I wouldn't be able to suppress you. But my Xinyuan Empire has cultivated for countless years, and we also have the power of immortals secretly supporting us. This is something you can't have. So, you are destined to lie here today. Power, I want power." Then, he looked at Emperor Xinyuan. His body trembled as he prepared to unleash another astonishing attack. The Su Fang silently settled down and communicated with the small heaven and earth immortal pot. It didn't have much immortal spiritual energy left, and if it used a large amount, it would be difficult to recover once it was used up. It still needed to be saved for when it went to the great world. What methods did he use? To contend against Emperor Xinyuan. This was Su Fang's only thought at this moment, his only thought. He couldn't help but look behind him. For the sake of everyone, Green Feather King took a huge risk alone to fight against the Astrolabe immortal sword. The longer the battle dragged on, even if he was the Rock King, his life would be in danger. Back then at the Xianjia Gate, he had already risked his life to save him. Su Fang didn't want anything to happen to the Rock King. Looking at the other experts, they were also surrounded by countless experts from the Xinyuan Empire and Immortal Primordial Domain. If he didn't defeat Emperor Xinyuan here, his losses would only get worse. There was only one choice, and that was to defeat Emperor Xinyuan regardless of the consequences. Not only for others but also for himself. Only by defeating such an expert would he be able to truly roam the small world. Emperor Xinyuan was the final peak he wanted to challenge in this small world. "Master, he's coming." The starry daylight sword and the long spear finished their battle and returned to Su Fang's surroundings. They flew slowly, constantly on guard against Emperor Xinyuan. Magic treasures had spirituality. When they learned that their master was injured, their physical body would need time to recover. There's no other choice. Even if I fall into the demonic path, I won't hesitate. People live to prove themselves. Since I'm alive, I have to prove that I'm not inferior to others. I have to fight for this honor. With a thought, the flaming cloud spirit gourd, Rakshasa jade bottle, and other magic treasures in his body immediately strengthened his physical body. At the same time, he pushed the Xian Wang Six Paths Pagoda to the extreme. Emperor Xinyuan fused with the long spear. When he saw Su Fang's magic treasure aura, he wasn't moved. Another life treasure. If your cultivation reaches the flying immortal realm, if you're not in the shackles of this place, you'll be at a disadvantage. You won't be my match. I only have one thought now, and that is to surpass you and defeat you. For this, I can disregard all consequences. Let's see what you're capable of. Nightmare Blood Transformation. After being strengthened by his life treasure and other magic treasures, Su Fang was in his strongest state. However, he still hadn't activated the power of 20,000 Big Goblin. But a shocking amount of demonic chi and netherworld chi surged out. Then, blood spots and blood lines began to appear on his skin. You dual cultivate the demonic path. Emperor Xinyuan's expression changed. Someone like you will fall into the demonic path sooner or later and become a demon. This is my choice. If I can become strong enough to deal with strong enemies, I will use it. Su Fang slowly released his demonic chi and looked down on the domain. Suddenly, 2 streaks of blood burst out from his shoulders. Sizzle! 2 bloody horns grew out of his shoulders, dripping with blood like the horns of a true demon. Nightmare Blood Transformation. Emperor Xinyuan trembled slightly. So it's the nightmare blood transformation. I don't believe that a mortal realm cultivator like you can control the nightmare blood transformation. Either you die or I live. The bloody horns finally grew out. At this moment, Su Fang's demonic qi and genuine qi were mixed together, mainly with the evil netherworld qi. He felt that he had gained an indestructible body. Together with the 6 layers of energy released by his life treasure, Su Fang was in the state of nightmare blood transformation. This was the first time he had used the nightmare blood transformation without restraint. With your inhuman and ghostly appearance, you want to become an immortal and attain the Tao? Dream on. Your head is mine. Innate divine might. Emperor Shenyuan had reached the peak of his strength as well. The spear had fused with him, and his body was filled with a fierce aura of interweaving spear shadows. In addition to the Emperor's aura and the Emperor's domain that he controlled, the Emperor Shenyuan Emperor was an invincible existence. Whoosh whoosh, here he came. The divine origin empire, who had entered his natal state, had the aura of an emperor as well as divine might. His hands had turned into sharp spear tips, and his head had an indescribable sharpness. Spear shadows filled his entire body. He also had a doctrine artifact armor. It was not too much to say that he had a sharp edge. I want your life. Of course. It seemed that Su Fang, who was in the nightmare blood transformation, wasn't a match for the origin god emperor. But there was one thing that Su Fang didn't know. Once the origin god emperor truly stimulated the nightmare blood transformation and fused it with his life magic tool, just how terrifyingly strong would he be? Whoosh! Su Fang trembled, and the imperial territory trembled. He joined the fight. Bang! The 2 peerless experts exchanged punches in the air and clashed in the emperor domain. Tut tut tut! The impact cut the imperial territory in the middle and then exploded. Many black holes and cracks appeared in the galaxy. It was as if the 2 were going to be sucked into the black hole and banished forever. Emperor Shenyuan was shocked. You can really control the nightmare blood transformation. Between their fists, both of them could clearly feel how terrifying the other's divine power was. What do you think? I will use the fist of the sacred master to defeat you. A burst of netherworld qi rushed out from Su Fang's arms, interweaving into a supreme demonic qi. He punched out again, this time with astonishing demonic runes. Emperor Shenyuan did not want to be left behind. He also used the fist of the sacred master. Bang! Another confrontation ensued. Following that, the 2 of them launched an offensive with their arms. Like a pile driver, they fought with loud booms. The galaxy above them was completely swept away by the destructive astral storm. It even affected the origin god world and the battlefield. Crack! This kind of peak impact caused Su Fang and Emperor Shenyuan's defenses to shatter at the same time. In addition to their attacks, it was like the 2 of them were tearing each other's bodies apart. Bang! One punch hit Su Fang's shattered defenses. The Emperor Shenyuan's fist penetrated the defense and hit Su Fang's chest. Then, Su Fang saw the moment his opponent's defenses shattered and punched the Emperor Shenyuan's body. But it hit the Tao artifact armor. Even so, the Emperor Shenyuan's body trembled. He could not believe the divine power in Su Fang's fist. Was he even human? Bang! In less than a breath's time, the 2 of them were once again punching each other. The close combat had reached such a tragic point. Although the Emperor Shenyuan had a Tao artifact armor, he was still coughing out mouthfuls of air and blood. However, Su Fang's chest was punched again and again. He was also coughing up blood again and again. Crazy! Crazy! One was a bull, the other was a lion. His eyes were filled with killing intent. There was not the slightest trace of fear. The Emperor Shenyuan took another punch from Su Fang. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then, he punched Su Fang. The hole in Su Fang's chest had already healed. He shook his head. Are you a human or a devil? Are you a human or a monster? I'm wearing a Dao artifact armor, but it can't compare to your physical body. I am Su Fang, the future realm master of the origin god world. I am no one but myself. Emperor Xinyuan, don't even think about stopping. I will stop. I have a Dao artifact. Pow. Pow. The two experts coughed up blood. Their bodies trembled violently, but they still punched each other. The battle was so intense that it was like they had returned to the most primitive era. They were using the most primitive method to decide the victor. Below the origin god world, 1,000,000 cultivators were protecting it. They were also waiting for the Emperor Xinyuan's orders. They had personally witnessed the battle between the two. Their bodies and minds were torn apart. Their primordial spirits were trembling. Their Dao hearts were about to shatter under this pressure. Over 1,000 times. Over 10,000 times. Phil. The Emperor Xinyuan and Su Fang did not count how many punches they had taken. They had exhausted everything. Clenching their teeth, they could only persevere. Xinyuan Emperor, the only victor is me, Su Fang. If you wanted to suppress me in close combat, you wouldn't have been able to use your world's strength. Joining forces with other experts to deal with me would have been the best plan. But you chose the worst plan because my advantage is my physical body. Blood transformation power. Both sides' auras had disappeared. It was impossible to tell who would win in the end. At this moment, the bloody horns on Su Fang's shoulders grew once more. His body was tightly bound by a bloody seal that drilled into his body. Boom! That was because he was using all his strength to stimulate the demon blood transformation. He wanted his body to be in its most powerful state. He did not care about the danger of falling into the demonic path. He gathered all his strength in his fist and punched at the incoming Emperor Xinyuan's fist. Bang! Boom! The two fists collided. But this time they were not at the same height. Instead, Su Fang's right fist was covered in bloody seals. Combined with some black lotus blood runes, Su Fang's fist erupted with the peak of his will ignition. The punch broke Emperor Xinyuan's right arm, and the remaining force of the punch sent Emperor Xinyuan flying several miles away. Chapter 851. Whoosh! Under Su Fang's punch, the power of the Origin God Emperor was sent flying back into the Origin God world's celestial river. Please move. Look at Su Fang again. The blood horn on his body was nearly a meter long, and his whole body was covered in blood marks, as well as the black lotus mark that only the black lotus true body had. Together with the devil marks, it was as if the nightmare blood transformation had formed some kind of peerless power with the black lotus true body. This was a strange and new body. Back then, when the nightmare blood transformation exploded, Su Fang was a devil who had fallen into the devil race. At this time, although he had devil chi, the devil marks on his body were mostly blood marks and blood lotus marks. His skin was covered in a thick layer. Thank goodness! This also proves that a person's potential is indeed unlimited. The nightmare blood transformation is already half a step into the demonic Tao. When a cultivator encounters such a thing, let alone controlling the nightmare blood transformation, even suppressing it and maintaining a clear mind is difficult. Once the nightmare blood transformation erupts, there is a chance that they will completely fall into the demonic Tao. Before this, I was also afraid of stepping into the devil path and becoming a devil. I feared light and lived in darkness. But now, as long as my mind is clear and I have no distracting thoughts, then I can activate the nightmare blood transformation with all my strength. The most important thing is that the nightmare blood transformation and the black lotus true body have cleverly fused together. Although I'm currently in the nightmare blood transformation state, this is definitely not the nightmare blood transformation, but a brand new power stimulated by the nightmare blood transformation and my physical body. In terms of strength, speed, and divine might, the punch sent Emperor Xinyuan flying. Many cultivators stared blankly at this scene. More importantly, even Su Fang himself found it hard to believe. He had no absolute confidence that after using the nightmare blood transformation, he could truly surpass Emperor Xinyuan. After all, the nightmare blood transformation was a dangerous devil transformation state. Back when he killed the third crown prince, he had used the nightmare blood transformation to unleash extraordinary power. In recent years, he had been trying to figure out whether or not righteous Tao cultivators could grasp the nightmare blood transformation. This was a risk. It was also his only choice. It proved that his choice was correct. At this moment, his potential was stimulated. Moreover, he was now in the nightmare blood transformation state. It was no longer the nightmare blood transformation, but a brand new power. Xinyuan Emperor, hand over your life. Looking down on the starry sky, his aura shook the universe. Before he could figure out just what kind of strength he possessed, his thoughts suddenly became incomparably clear. He burned with the desire to kill the Origin God Emperor and lead the powerhouses to carve out a new tomorrow. Thunder roared like a tiger, and in the form of the nightmarish blood transformation, he looked like a devil from the darkness, burning with darkness and evil as he shot toward Emperor Xinyuan. Above and below, inside and outside the primordial god world, everyone was shaken by Su Fang's battle cry that shook the starry skies. Protect the Emperor! He thought that this was the best opportunity to kill Emperor Xinyuan. But he was wrong. The world was never fair. This was not a competition. A large number of Origin God World's masters panicked and rushed into the shattered Overlord Domain Star River to stop Su Fang. Boom! Boom! At the very beginning, there were 10 or so peerless hermits of the royal family with 3 calamity daos. They all released the Divine Emperor Divine Origin scripture, and their auras were terrifying. They all had the strength of Sorcerer Heiyun. So what? As soon as they attacked, they were directly smashed by Su Fang's pair of bloody horns. The bloody horns directly tore the hermits of the royal family into pieces. The other hermits also rushed over, but no one could stop Su Fang, who had reached another height and whose body was as strong as a Tao artifact. This emperor will not fall like this. A powerhouse awakened. No, he was only temporarily moving with the wind in the starry sky. More than a dozen experts came to the front of the blood-covered Emperor Xinyuan, who still had a Tao artifact. They saw that Su Fang was already 1 mile away. Emperor Xinyuan suddenly burned his overlord aura. It was still domineering, and the power of the world he released was still as strong as before. But his body was seriously injured by Su Fang, especially his entire right arm. It was almost impossible to raise it. The bones should have been shattered. Suddenly, he turned around and grabbed his spear, wanting to rush up and fight Su Fang again. However, he suddenly stopped. First, he looked at Su Fang, who was only 100 meters away, and then he glanced at the Origin God world. Su Fang's 5 fingers clawed out 10 terrifying bloody claws. I want your life! But before he could reach Emperor Xinyuan, the central star river suddenly distorted, and a figure shuttled through the void and waved his arm at Su Fang. Deity, Su Fang's eyes were so bright that he couldn't see anything clearly. Boom! The 10 bloody claws were shattered, and the immortal light also sent Su Fang flying. A mortal dares to kill this emperor's descendant? You're done for. The figure emitted a dazzling immortal light. With a shake, he quickly condensed a palm and slammed it at Su Fang, who had lost his balance. This move would definitely threaten Su Fang's life. 5 poisons killing array. Divine Arm Sacred Fist. In less than 10 meters, the immortal's palm was about to swallow Su Fang. At this critical moment, 2 figures appeared from Su Fang's left and right at the same time. A black-robed man released an endless amount of poisonous vital qi, combined with the immortal light of a Tao artifact. An expert with a demonic aura activated the Tao artifact with both arms and punched out with boundless divine power. Clap! Clap! Faster than the immortal, the two experts arrived in front of the immortal's giant palm at the same time. Behind the giant palm of celestial radiance, that illusory figure laughed imposingly. "Five Poison Sect Master, I really did meet you. You are my senior, a peerless giant who laughed proudly at the world over 100,000 years ago." Boom! Boom! As the sound came, the two experts who had rushed out in time were also knocked over by the immortal's palm. Fortunately, they didn't fly far and floated in the air. It was the Lord of Five Poisons and the Tongtian monster Venerable. In time, they lifted Su Fang, who was still in the air, from behind. Su Fang was dispirited, but he still forced himself to stand straight. Su Fang looked at the Lord of Five Poisons and the Tongtian monster Venerable with concern. "Are the two of you okay?" The Tongtian monster Venerable shook his head. The Lord of Five Poisons looked at the immortal who was coming. "He's even more powerful than Xian Daotian. This person is Jing Suifeng, someone who ascended 50,000 years ago. Lord of Five Poisons." A middle-aged man in the immortal light pressed down. This was a holy man in a white robe with golden embroidery. Immortal light was naturally released from his eyes and head, as if he had brought beautiful scenery. It was another immortal from the primordial god world, a peerless immortal who ascended 50,000 years ago, Jing Suifeng. Jing Suifeng only looked at the Lord of Five Poisons. "Before I descended, I thought that you might have been killed by the descendants of the royal family or Doichi. I probably couldn't pass on my words to you. Fortunately, you're alive, so I can pass it on to you." The sect master and the Tongtian monster Venerable protected Su Fang. "Why did my sect fall more than 100,000 years ago, but you were born tens of thousands of years later? You're my junior. Do you have anything to say to me?" "Of course, I have nothing to say to you. But have you forgotten the moment you ascended and transcended the tribulation? Before you died, you encountered that power and will. You're saying that it's him. That's it. It seems like you won't be able to forget my family's ancestor for the rest of your life. When he was in the lower realm, he told me to tell you if I met you. More than 100,000 years ago, he was able to kill you with a single strand of energy, preventing you from transcending the tribulation and ascending. Now, he can also trample you under his feet." Jing Yuan. Hearing Jing Suifeng's words, the Lord of Five Poisons clenched his fists. His joints seemed to be wriggling. The Lord of Five Poisons sneered angrily. "You'd better release a will to Jing Yuan immediately. Otherwise, you'll also die here. As for Jing Yuan, tell him that after I, the Lord of Five Poisons, ascend, I'll definitely go to the great world and take his head. After so many years, you're indeed as arrogant as the rumors say. But now you're going to die in my hands." Jing Suifeng's aura suddenly exploded. He stepped forward step by step, causing black holes to appear in the starry sky. "I'll protect Master." The Tongtian monster Venerable protected Su Fang. Just as the Lord of Five Poisons was about to attack, Su Fang grabbed him. Jing Suifeng flew over arrogantly. "The three of you can go to hell. Don't you dare hurt my younger brother." A spiritual light, like starlight in the darkness, suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. A chaotic force was released in the surrounding starry sky. Sizzle! Jing Suifeng's immortal aura rushed over with him. When it came into contact with this dark aura, it was obviously corroded by the dark aura. Although the corrosion was not very shocking, it was still unbelievable. His power was from the great world, but what about his opponent? How could the power of a mortal world's cultivator make the power of a great world tremble? Bai Ling controlled the mysterious power of the mysterious heavenly monarch of chaos to resist the immortal's aura. "I'm the Chaos Fairy. How can I let you hurt my younger brother? Chaos Fairy? Immortal? I've never heard of your name." Jing Suifeng was really shocked, and he hesitated slightly. Su Fangda was happy. "Sister Bai, you've come at the right time. Only you can stop Jing Suifeng. Suddenly, an empty voice came from behind Jing Suifeng. Brother Feng, the small world naturally has extraordinary power. This little demon probably obtained the inheritance of some peerless immortal emperor, which is why she has such incredible power. Kill her, and this mysterious power will become our treasure. Jing Suifeng tilted his body and nodded. Immortal Master, you've come at the right time. It's time to end this joke. Capture Su Fang and this little demon, and then return to the immortal Ao Great World. Another immortal, other than Bai Ling, Su Fang, Demon Venerable Tongtian, and the Lord of Five Poisons were slightly shocked. A cloud of immortal clouds rolled over from Jing Suifeng's side. It was a 30-year-old immortal in a green robe. His black and green robe fluttered in the air, giving people the feeling that this person was bottomless. Not to mention Immortal Master, I can also kill you. With the appearance of Immortal Master Ling Xian, the situation changed again. Jing Suifeng was very proud. Crane Fairy Bai Ling put her hands on her hip. Two immortals, do you think I'm afraid of you? I'm the true disciple of the Heavenly Monarch of Chaos. Heavenly Monarch of Chaos, Immortal Master Ling Xian understood. Immortal Master, I seem to have some impression of the Heavenly Monarch of Chaos, but I can't say exactly. I guess I've heard of him when I was cultivating in the lower realm. What Heavenly Monarch of Chaos? Everything will turn to dust in front of me. Yes, yes. Jing Suifeng's eyes were not only proud, but also twisted ferociously. The Lord of Five Poisons, Su Fang, and you, little crane, must stay here today. Those who should die must die, and those who should be suppressed must be suppressed. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Bai Ling said fearlessly. Everyone, it's time to deal with the immortals with all your strength. Kill the immortals, and this war will be over. Su Fang suddenly sent a thought to the back. Master! Whoosh! The big goblin rushed over first, followed by Li Haojie, Su Zhenhua, and other experts. Chapter 852. The experts that came were all existences with Tao artifact. Except for the green feather monarch. The human giants with Tao artifacts were on one side. The Lord of Five Poisons, Li Ziqing, Su Zhenhua, Qin Yuanhou, Sacred Monarch Guangzhou, Li Haojie, and Elder He Zun. The big goblin with Tao artifacts were the sky-reaching monster Venerable, Zhu Huang, 9 segments Earth Dragon, Wuling Goblin, 9-headed Monster King, and Monster King Brute Force on the right side of Su Fang. Together with Su Fang and Bai Ling, there were a total of 13 peerless giants with Tao artifact. They were like a long snake in a line, and their aura was heaven-defying. Jing Suifeng glanced at them one by one and looked at Immortal Master Ling Xian with surprise. This is why the North Emperor and Xian Daotian died in your hands. With so many people with Tao artifacts, any immortal who comes down here can't deal with so many Tao artifacts. A bunch of chickens and dogs, just ants of the mortal world. Immortal Master Ling Xian ignored everyone and only had Su Fang in his eyes. Kid, you should know why I came down here, right? It's because of you. It's because my memory isn't good. Su Fang, who was under the protection of the experts, was no longer in the nightmare blood transformation state and was secretly devouring all kinds of resources. Facing Immortal Master Ling Xian's aggressive tone, he just casually replied, "You're still playing dumb? Don't you know the time?" It was Jing Suifeng's turn to roar. "Hand over the human emperor's inheritance, and we'll spare your life." The human emperor's inheritance? Sorry, it's already fused with me. I'm afraid I can't give it to you. Ever since you came to the primordial god world, I've been secretly watching your every move. You've already used the ethereal true enlightenment's peerless divine ability. In this world, a cultivator who hasn't reached the flying immortal realm can freely control the universe. It can only be the ethereal true enlightenment. Brat, you think you can fool us by feigning ignorance? Even if you don't tell us the truth, we'll still suppress you and obtain the ethereal quintessence through a soul search. Let me give you a piece of advice. It is impossible for an ant like you to possess the ethereal quintessence. This is a treasure that the power behind me must obtain. Even if I, immortal Masterling Exion, am unable to obtain it from you, there are still other immortals who will come looking for you. You can't possibly be hiding in a minor world, right? You will have to go to a major world. That's right. As long as you possess the ethereal true insight, you will forever be a rat crossing the street. We came from the lower realm under orders. We have a supreme power behind us. That is an existence that you all can never imagine. Smart people do smart things. Hand over the ethereal true insight and you will still be able to grasp it. We will also not forcefully extract it from your Yuan spirit. In fact, if you are willing to hand it over, we will give it to you if you want a Tao artifact, immortal tier cultivation technique, or any other treasure. Jing Suifeng and immortal Master Ling Xian were putting on a two-man show in front of more than 10 experts. If one's Tao heart wasn't firm enough, they would really be bewitched or influenced. Even the Lord of Five Poisons, Li Ziqing, Su Zhenhua, Li Haojie, and the Big Goblin were sizing up Su Fang. In the face of their different gazes, Su Fang resolutely refused. The ethereal true insight originally came from a major world. You can comprehend it yourselves. Senior Human Emperor didn't grasp its secrets, and the ability I used to control the River of Stars also didn't come from the ethereal true insight. That's why I don't understand why you came to the lower realm. What a waste of energy! Immortal Master Ling Xion's cold-killing intent returned. Jing Suifeng pointed. Su Fang, I advise you not to act recklessly. Ha ha! Su Fang suddenly laughed. Do you think my Su Fang is some human emperor's inheritance? It is Senior Human Emperor's life's work. As his inheritance, I have to protect it. I have to protect it forever. If I give it to you, wouldn't I have no heart? If you want it, it'll depend on your strength. I hope you can still speak so boldly after being suppressed by me. Jing Suifeng instantly released a deity aura and the Xian Guang. Undying Turtle, it's time. The overlords and the Big Goblin flashed and surrounded by Ling one by one. Su Fang roared towards the sky. I'm here. Don't worry. I'm not the Undying Turtle, but the Undying Heavenly Lord. Why don't you remember the Undying Heavenly Lord? A young man in a black robe slowly landed. It was the Undying Turtle that had been hiding in the depths of the River of Stars with Bai Ling, another Big Goblin. Immortal Master Ling Xian was very surprised. Jing Suifeng's expression changed slightly. Is the Undying Turtle the heavenly horn-giant striped turtle that has lived for nearly 1,000,000 years in the immortal melody world? It's good that the Xinyuan Empire remembers me. The Undying Turtle landed in front of everyone. Su Fang's injuries had completely recovered, but he still looked a bit weak. Jing Suifeng, immortal Master Ling Xian, the 4 of you came to the lower world before, but I killed you one by one. Do you think it's possible for the 2 of you to kill me now? If we weren't prepared, we wouldn't have the confidence to deal with a dozen cultivators from the lower world who had fused with their Tao artifacts. But do you think we deities don't have other methods to survive in the great world? Jing Suifeng suddenly opened a passage of deity aura. Whoosh! A giant eagle appeared out of thin air. Demon Immortal's immortal Master Ling Xian also pointed. Ben Chihu, Ben Lehu. Master! 2 strong men with demon patterns on their bodies and tiger robes appeared. They were also demon immortals, but in human form. Puppets! The 2 deities released a beam of deity aura at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another 4 figures appeared. They were numb deities without any consciousness. They were the overlords that had been killed by the 2 deities. They had been refined into puppets by the deities. This. Su Fang looked at the 3 demon immortals and 4 puppets in shock. The other overlords and the big goblin were also shocked. Adding them all together, the enemy had 7 helpers. Plus the 2 deities, there were 9 overlords from the great world. Looks like we're going to spill our blood in this galaxy today. The 5 Venom sect leader held his breath. He was in a state of shock. He could also sense the emotions of the experts around him. However, he did not back down and shouted, "Everyone, if you want to become immortals, and if you want to go to the great world and become powerful immortals, this is the final hurdle that we must cross. Moreover, we are all extraordinary and have our own methods. In the end, we will be the victors." Su Zhenhua bowed. "We've lived for more than 10,000 years. Since we're following Master, we have to overcome this obstacle and follow Master to death." Su Fang could feel the Overlord's wills very strongly. He pointed at the enemy. "Thank you for your trust. I'll have to trouble Sister Bai and the Heavenly Venerate to deal with the 2 deities. Everyone else, work together to deal with the 3 demon immortals and the 4 puppets." Immortal Master Ling Xian also released a shocking deity aura. His green robes fluttered in the wind, and waves of cold air began to freeze. Mantis trying to stop a chariot. "Kill!" Deity voices exploded. The 3 demon immortals and the 4 puppets leaped up, causing the space to distort. "Let's go!" Bai Ling and the Undying Tortoise also charged out with the overlords at almost the same time. Their goal was to stop Immortal Master Ling Xian and Jing Suifeng. Primordial God World. In the next moment, in the starry sky, the overlords released the power of Tao artifacts and fought with the enemy puppets and the big goblin. The big goblin against the demon immortals, and the overlords against the puppet. Su Fang was shaken by the shock waves of the explosion. At this time, even a strand of the power could kill any Ascension Realm cultivator. Boom! Especially further ahead, Bai Ling and Jing Suifeng were fighting, while Immortal Master Ling Xian and the Undying Tortoise were fighting, causing the Milky Way to be full of shock waves that could kill overlords of the flying celestial realm. Su Fang activated the power of the world. In just half an hour, he swallowed most of the resources, allowing him to recover more or less. The real reason why he recovered so quickly was actually the Black Lotus true body and the perfect physical body. Without these, he wouldn't have such amazing recovery ability in a short time. Some overlords were entangled with the immortals. Su Fang didn't hesitate. He believed in them. With the speed of the Door of Wonder, he passed through the central shock wave Milky Way. In front of him was the square formation of Emperor Xinyuan, protected by tens of thousands of Imperial Clan experts. He shouted in the sky, ignoring the tens of thousands of people blocking him. He shouted disdainfully, "Emperor Xinyuan, you and I are both injured. Shouldn't we continue to fight? You're an emperor. Don't you have any ambition?" Suddenly, Emperor Xinyuan waved his hand. Under the protection of tens of thousands of people, he and a group of peerless experts flew toward the primordial God world's barrier. He even sneered, "How can I be instigated by you? I've cultivated for tens of thousands of years. I could have ascended long ago, but I've always stayed here. Do you know why?" "You really slipped away." Su Fang chased after him. "It's not that I don't have a competitive heart. It's not that I don't want to become a peerless immortal. It's just that from the day I became the Emperor and the Realm Lord, my cultivation path was no longer about personal strength. It was about protecting the primordial God world. Therefore, why should I fight with you to the end? You're just an ignorant kid. You'll never understand what true responsibility is." At this moment, Emperor Xinyuan had already flown into the world's barrier. Moreover, a magical altar rose up there, 100-mile-long magical altar. Emperor Xinyuan seemed to be forming hand seals. An astonishing throne rose from the altar, and the altar's aura perfectly fused with the world's barrier. It seemed to be some kind of huge, offensive existence. "Don't even think about stopping me. he passed by tens of thousands of Imperial family experts. The former was either releasing large arrays, arrows, or magic treasures. As for Su Fang, he activated the nightmare demon blood transformation, and a bloody horn grew out. As he rushed forward, he released a heaven-defying demonic aura. Boom, boom, boom. He waved the starlight sword. Any magic treasure that encountered it was sent flying. As for the other divine abilities, large arrays, and arrows, he directly used the momentum of the nightmare demon blood transformation to crush them. Tens of thousands of flying immortals of the Imperial family couldn't stop a cultivator who had cultivated for hundreds of years. I didn't expect a stalemate to reach such a degree. The world's barrier. On the throne in the altar, Emperor Xinyuan kept adding seals. A large number of Imperial family experts were silent. They were actually afraid of this young man who didn't fear death. Emperor Xinyuan fiercely released a thought, causing all the experts to come back to their senses. Especially below, tens of thousands of cultivators appeared between the primordial god world and the world's barrier. They all had a shocking world aura. This was the true strength of the Xinyuan Empire. Wind and clouds rise, the world as a furnace. As the Emperor and the World Master, a large number of sealing chains poured out from Emperor Xinyuan's body. They first fused with the altar, then fused with the world's barrier. His aura had no temperature. It was as cold as the galaxy. My Xinyuan Empire has been established for tens of thousands of years. We have never truly used the power of a world or a nation. This emperor will rely on the power of a world to end this war and eliminate the strong enemies. Emperor Xinyuan opened his hands. At this moment, all the chains burned with the world's essence. Together with the emperor's aura, the altar became a golden existence. The power of a nation, the power of a world. Seeing this, Su Fang knew that a bloody battle was coming. Author's words: the end of the month will explode. Chapter 853. Tens of thousands of royal experts couldn't stop Su Fang. Any magic treasure, divine ability, or formation attack disappeared like stones in front of Su Fang. Emperor Xinyuan. 3 miles to go. This distance was only 10 feet in the eyes of mortals. If it weren't for a large number of experts blocking, Su Fang could reach the spell altar in less than 3 breaths. Nation weapon, return. On the spell altar. In the dazzling world power, Emperor Xinyuan's hand seals were constantly changing, like flowers blooming in brocade. Whoosh! In just 1 breath, the battlefield's shockwave was like a river of stars. A sword chi came from the sky, splitting the shockwave from the experts' fight in the sky and flying toward the primordial god world at an indescribable speed. Not good. The nation weapon Astrolabe Immortal Sword is similar to Su Zhenhua's strength when activated by one person, but when activated by a world, even 10 Su Zhenhuas would find it difficult to resist. Just 1 mile away, it was about to reach the spell altar. Su Fang glanced at it and saw vertical lines appear on his arms. The nation weapon Astrolabe Immortal Sword was crazily attacking. What about Green Feather King? Was he seriously injured? At this moment, with another shio sound, the vast sky and the moon arrived. It was actually the country weapon, Stellar Plate Immortal Sword, slaughtering its way to the back, roughly several li of the starry river. In the next breath, it would reach the sky where Su Fang was. Clang! This time, he had to deal with the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. But he raised his eyebrows in surprise. Behind him, a sword light suddenly intercepted the nation weapon Astrolabe Immortal Sword in midair and clashed again. This king isn't dead yet. A demon shadow flapped its wings, creating a whirlpool of star waves. Green Feather King had returned. Senior. Su Fang's eyes were wet at this moment. Green Feather King's body was covered in bloody sword wounds. Although there were no fatal injuries, his demon chi was obviously weaker than before, and several of his wings were broken. He roared, Don't worry and do your thing. Don't let everyone down. Everyone is caught in a whirlpool of life and death. Whether you can survive or not depends on whether you can take down the primordial god world. Thank you, Senior. Just as you said, this king also needs to pass through the final stage. Although he has experienced the test of life and death in the Xianjia Gate, fighting is what this king truly needs. Green Feather Monarch spat out immortal stones and used them on Heaven Monarch's soul sword. Maintaining the same speed as the Tao artifact Immortal Sword, he no longer diverted his attention and focused on stopping the nation artifact Astrolabe Immortal Sword from entering the primordial god world. Rumble. Taking the fire cloud steps, he stepped on an astonishing burning cloud of fire, shaking off all sorts of attacks. The spell altar was right in front of them. It's finally here. With a wave of his hand, Su Fang unleashed the Starry Daylight Sword, condensing the Limitless Prime Clarity Sword formation from the Limitless Tao Art. A large expanse of sword light slashed towards the spell altar. A world palm imprint also surged from the spell altar toward the sword formation. Supreme World Domain. Just as Su Fang was about to enter the altar, the familiar primordial god world's world chi gushed out from behind, above, in front, and below. Moreover, it was an aura formed by chains and runes. He flashed again, and was about to slash at the spell altar when suddenly, the chains and runes in front of him became incomparably real, instantly condensing into a world barrier. That's right, it's a world barrier. Impossible, this is not the primordial god world. He turned around with a face full of shock. Behind him was also a world barrier that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. There were barriers under his feet and above his head. In a breath, Su Fang actually fell into a shackled space formed by the world barrier in this galaxy. Countless powerhouses also saw this scene. This was because a massive, golden world barrier had suddenly appeared around the primordial god world. It was like a golden sphere that floated in front of the primordial god world, almost fusing together with the world barrier. The Lord of Five Poisons, Li Ziqing, Su Zhenhua, Li Haojie, and the other experts couldn't sense Su Fang's aura for a while and completely disappeared from the galaxy. They continued to fight with the immortals, still resolute. They believed that Su Fang wouldn't fall in the galaxy like this. This was not his end. I really didn't expect that there would be a realm lord in the mortal world who created such a shocking space floating in the galaxy. Inside the golden ball, looking at the solid world barrier, Su Fang only had 2 words written on his face: shock. The galaxy was a place where life couldn't survive. The same went for immortals. Immortals like 7 Stars and Holly couldn't use the strength that immortals should have in the galaxy. When they used it, it was shackled by the galaxy. It could be imagined that even immortals couldn't do it, so how powerful could a cultivator from a small world create in the galaxy? The shock in Su Fang's eyes came from the primordial god world, from Emperor Xinyuan, because Emperor Xinyuan had created a miracle that mortal cultivators couldn't do. How strong was Emperor Xinyuan? No. Under the Great Perfection Perception, this world barrier didn't come from all of Emperor Xinyuan's power. It only had 1/10 of his aura, and most of it came from the primordial god world and the power of faith. Obviously, this world barrier came from both the Xinyuan Empire and the primordial god world. To be able to reach such a height, it completely proved that the primordial god world, under the fusion of generations of experts of the Jing family, surpassed the fusion of a small world by any realm lord. That was why it could reach such a level. Otherwise, when immortals came from the Zhuotian realm, Realm Lord Zhuotian could use such power. The best comparison was the Grand Immortal Realm Lord. If he had such ability, why would he submit to Su Fang so easily? This emperor has cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and I thought I wouldn't use such power. Even the emperors who inherited this emperor's power didn't use it. A buzzing sound came from above the barrier. It was Emperor Xinyuan. It wasn't his real body, but his will. He merged with the barrier around him and controlled this world. He said majestically, "When you push it to the limit, it means that your death is coming. This farce should also come to an end now." Emperor Xinyuan Su Feng was about to use a divine ability to attack the barrier. Who would have thought that a large number of chains would suddenly appear around him? He didn't react. The Xinyuan Emperor shouted, "This is my domain. If I want to suppress you, I only need a thought. Su Feng, you really are a terrifying genius. Unfortunately, you're just one person. You can't change anything. That's why you've failed." Hua hua hua. He was surrounded by sealing chains. Su Feng hurriedly took the fire cloud steps, but who would have thought that at this moment, the power of the barrier shackles would cause the fire cloud steps to be unable to be used, and neither could the fire cloud wings. His movements were completely shackled. A large number of chains intertwined to form a large cauldron. Spirit Camel Immortal Cauldron. Su Feng couldn't be more familiar with it. He had already fallen into the immortal cauldron formed by the seal. However, it wasn't over yet. Below the seal, the real Spirit Camel Immortal Cauldron appeared. Emperor Xinyuan was even more proud. "Haha, this emperor will suck you dry and finally seal your primordial spirit. I heard that it is a power that can completely change the fate of my Jing clan. Just wait to be shackled by the Spirit Camel Immortal Cauldron. This emperor wants to see it with his own eyes." 2-2. Suddenly, the Spirit Camel Immortal Cauldron that appeared below Su Feng was activated. Immortal light exploded. "I will kill you!" The immortal light from the small universe immortal pot also burst out from Su Feng's body. The effect was immediately formed. The small universe immortal pot sealed the cauldron around it, shaking it until it started to shake. Some seals began to peel off and break. It looked like it was about to struggle out. The real Spirit Camel Immortal Cauldron Tao artifact surged out. Qi flames instantly merged with the sealed cauldron, completely enveloping Su Feng, who was within the small universe immortal pot's divine power. This also meant that Su Feng had already been suppressed. It was just a matter of how long he could delay it. The small universe immortal pot's spirit appeared in Su Feng's divine aperture. "Master, I can still hold on for a long time. You don't have to worry. I am originally a storage space, so I still have enough immortal qi. However, with the immortal cauldron's shackles, Master can only think of a way to escape. I can only reach a stalemate with the immortal cauldron. If you want to leave here, the biggest problem is the world barrier." World barrier. His heart relaxed, but a sharp sword still hung in the air. With the small universe immortal pot, he didn't have to worry about being suppressed. However, as it said, if he couldn't leave, he would definitely be suppressed for a long time. World barrier. Su Feng now relaxed himself. The divine power of the Tao artifact was protecting him. Even the Xinyuan Emperor couldn't hurt Su Feng at this moment. Because of the small universe immortal pot hanging above, he couldn't hurt Su Feng unless he had the power to break the Tao artifact. Overall, Su Feng had already fallen into the state of being shackled and suppressed. Since it's the world barrier, it shouldn't be a problem for me. I cultivated the Divine Emperor Divine Origin Scripture and obtained the power of the world. I just need to use my divine power and then find a way to control the world barrier. After sorting out his thoughts, Su Feng looked at the world barrier. The most important power was the world essence and the Emperor's Qi of the Divine Emperor Divine Origin Scripture. In fact, he already had control of these two. What he needed to do now was to use his great divine power and control the world barrier. He could escape with his life or break the world barrier. He believed that even the Xinyuan Empire couldn't activate this kind of Star River Great Array multiple times. Ethereal True Solution. Power of the World. Pure Yang Power. He used the world barrier. With the primordial God world's power as the foundation, he released the Emperor's Chi of the Divine Emperor Divine Origin Scripture, and then used the ethereal true solution. Just as he was about to break through the outer seal of the cauldron, his divine power was shackled by the spirit camel immortal cauldron. The Tao artifact blocked his power. Master, let me deal with the Tao artifact. The small universe immortal pot suddenly released an even more dazzling immortal light. In an instant, it vibrated like the spirit camel immortal cauldron. Su Fang's great divine power indeed came into contact with the seal of the cauldron. They had the same power. With the ethereal true solution, Su Fang began to smoothly fuse with the seal of the cauldron. However, an aura that couldn't be seen by the naked eye came from the seal of the cauldron. However, his primordial spirit could see it. It was the will of countless people. This is the will of the primordial God world. It is also the will of countless people in the Xinyuan Empire's royal family. When combined with faith, it can release an unparalleled suppressive power, forming a shackle, making my power unable to contend against the seal of the cauldron. Following that, his divine power began to shrink under the pressure of the faith. His powerful primordial spirit, which cultivated the demonic disintegration seal, was not worth mentioning compared to the faith of an ancient empire. The primordial god emperor coldly shouted, "Su Fang, this is the power of my empire. You can't fight against it. If an immortal is trapped here, he will probably be suppressed. Haha, this emperor won't play with you anymore. You can slowly wait for your death. This emperor will use the remaining power of the empire to control the empire artifact, Astrolabe Immortal Sword. First, I will kill that demon rock. Then, those experts under you, the big goblin, and the others will all die. You can only watch as everything happens. In the end, you will slowly die alone. The other parties will turn into bubbles and disappeared." Heaven's secret life shrinking technique. But Su Fang, who should have been in despair, was suddenly in high spirits. The heavens did not give up on him. So, he also had a peerless great divine power that could restrain fate and faith. It was also the most powerful power that the mysterious woman had passed on to him besides the 9 suns' 9 transformations. It even made Su Fang feel that the heaven's secret life shrinking technique had surpassed the 9 suns' 9 transformations. Chapter 854. If I want to live, the heavens will not be able to take it away from me. The good fortune of fate is in control of the heavens. If I want something, the heavens cannot do without it. Fate is the creation of fortune, and I control the workings of heaven. If I am destroyed, everything will be destroyed. The good fortune of fate, controlling the mysteries of heaven. If I live forever, I will never die. If I want to live forever, the heavens and the earth will shake. If I want to live forever, the heavens will obey me. If I want to live forever, all the worlds will submit. If I want to live forever, the heavens will punish me. I will defy the heavens. If I want to live forever, the earth will bury me. I will break the earth. If I want to live forever, the earth will return to the earth. If I don't exist, there will be nothing. Heaven's secret life shrinking technique. A large amount of the will of the royal family that came from the barrier of the world for countless years turned into faith and suppressed Su Fang's divine power. He, who cultivated the heavenly devil disintegration seal, couldn't resist the attack of so many faith wills. How could he deal with the large amount of faith wills condensed by countless experts of the royal family alone? Under the constant pressure, Su Fang started to use the heaven's secret life shrinking technique at this critical moment. He used the essence of the great Tao and chanted it with his essence spirit. The surging Tao runes first formed a defense in his divine aperture. Then, a large amount of Tao runes gushed out of his mind and turned into an aura of Tao runes that surged towards the large amount of faith wills. Qi. Just as the faith wills from the royal family touched the Tao runes, they were like moths to a flame. they were instantly burned and turned into ashes. As expected, the heaven's secret life shrinking technique is above all living beings. It can deceive fate. The more faith wills are crushed. Now, let's see how I can surpass the power of faith left by countless experts in the Xinyuan Empire. Even more Dao runes gushed out. The barrier of the world was like a pack of wolves and tigers. It continued to attack. The wills of faith wills were human figures. They were all experts of the royal family who cultivated the divine emperor divine origin scripture. Su Fang sensed that the wills of faith wills were all around him. Sizzle! The Dao runes turned into surging power that directly attacked the wills of faith wills. Countless wills were burned and shattered. Rise! All of a sudden, the divine might that came from the formation was greatly reduced. He shouted. As the mini-universe immortal pot fought against the spiritual camel immortal cauldron, he gradually floated up from the shackles of the spiritual camel immortal cauldron. Even if he was not threatened by the spiritual camel immortal cauldron, he still had the small heaven and earth immortal pot to deal with this Tao treasure. However, when he arrived above the sealed cauldron, the shackles from the world barrier were still suppressing him. The world barrier had two main restraining powers. First, it was power. The power came from the primordial God world, as well as from the Xinyuan Empire's countless years of national strength. In addition, the sage emperor's primordial God scripture was the foundation of the world barrier. Secondly, there were the countless wills of faith. Will and power fused together to form the powerful world barrier. Su Fang had already used the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to shake away a large amount of the will of faith. However, the world barrier's power was still squeezing this space. He still had to think of a way to deal with it. The world barrier is formed by the primordial God world, the Xinyuan Empire, and the sacred emperor's primordial God scripture. I also have the same power in my body. Why do I have to resist it and not absorb it? This is the same as having my marrow cleansed, and as long as I can absorb it, I will have unimaginable power. Suppressed. After pondering for a long time, many of his hair had already turned white. When he waved them, they looked like white threads. Suddenly, his eyes became incomparably hale and hearty. I will use the 9 Suns' 9 transformations and try to break the spatial seal and absorb it. A bold idea appeared. He actually wanted to absorb the world barrier's power. Herculean divine palm. A supreme aura of a small world, or even a great world, exploded from Su Fang's arms. At the same time, it exploded into the void. With 2 rumbling sounds, 2 holes with a diameter of 3 meters appeared in the space of the array formation that was filled with pressure. After a while, the 2 holes merged into a 3-meter hole without any pressure. 9 Suns' 9 transformations. First transformation. When Su Fang arrived in the hole, it was as if he was in nature. After forming the hand seals, the true origin of the 9 yang meridians in his body began to activate. 9 pure yang energies began to circulate in the shape of a whirlpool. The other 4 yang meridians also began to cooperate. All the true qi in his meridians, muscles, bones, and black lotus blood threads were absorbed into the center of the 9 yang meridians. Then, all the true qi was absorbed into the 9 yang meridians, forming a shocking whirlpool. It spiraled out from the depths of Su Fang's body, forming a pure yang energy field. After this energy field appeared, it spewed out divine power. Su Fang also released his godly image. He began to use his pure yang energy to combine the power of the sacred Emperor Divine Origin Scripture, the primordial God world, and the Xinyuan Empire in his body. They exploded together and began to absorb the power of the array formation outside the energy field. Whoosh! Whoosh! The effect was immediately formed. The divine power that burst out from the fusion of the 3 powers really did absorb the power of the array formation around him bit by bit. The speed also increased. With the naked eye, one could clearly see that Su Fang was gradually becoming like a human-shaped sponge as he began to absorb the brilliance of the array formation around him. In the end, when Su Fang pushed it to the extreme, the power of the array formation flowed into Su Fang's body like a stream, making Su Fang's power surge. However, the world barrier was so vast. How long would it take to absorb the power at the speed of a stream? 100 years? 1,000 years? No. Not to mention 100 years, he couldn't even wait 10 years. He couldn't even wait a year. If he waited a moment longer, how many cultivators who were fighting against the Xinyuan Empire in the galaxy outside would die? Even the Green Feather Emperor's life would be in danger. Especially when the Divine Origin Emperor personally went out to use the national treasure, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword. I have to seize every moment. Su Fang gritted his teeth and clawed his palm with his fingertips, making himself feel pain. Then, he began to fiercely absorb the 9 yin qi from the primordial chaos sacred realm. When the 9 yin qi gushed out of the ancient mirror and into the 9 yang meridians, there was a vibration, and the speed of the whirlpool in the spline increased by 100 times. Moreover, this terrifying yin-yang whirlpool also took the initiative to absorb the golden lotus stone flower that was surrounded by 5 layers of starlight in the center of the yang meridians. At this moment, he was in an illusion. He actually had a connection with the golden lotus stone flower. He felt that the golden lotus stone flower was extremely deep and there was an infinitely huge world inside it. It seemed to be beckoning him, releasing an astonishing power that was absorbing the yin-yang qi. Not only the golden lotus stone flower, but the 5 layers of starlight around it also felt like there were 5 layers of space, and each layer was fused together, forming a state of qi circulation. It can't be an illusion. He suddenly came back to his senses and shivered. It seemed that he had experienced a wandering soul. He hurriedly looked at the golden lotus stone flower, and the result was like what he saw in his illusion. The yin-yang qi formed by the 9 yang meridians was actually being absorbed by the golden lotus stone flower. Although the speed wasn't too shocking, it was much faster than a stream. Then, a chain of changes was formed. The golden lotus stone flower was absorbing the power of the yin-yang whirlpool formed by the 9 yang meridians and the 4 yang meridians next to it, and this yin-yang qi flowed out of his body, causing the pure yang aura around Su Fang to suddenly form a starlight whirlpool. Yes, it was a starlight whirlpool. At first glance, one would think that it was a terrifying interstellar storm born in the galaxy or a starlight whirlpool. But in reality, this wasn't a storm or a whirlpool that could only be seen in the galaxy. It was an aura formed by the yin-yang qi that even Su Fang couldn't explain. The aura was like the world of stars in the depths of the yang meridians, emitting starlight and surrounding him. It was as though Su Fang wasn't in the world barrier, but in the stars. The aura turned into a starlight state, becoming a ball of starlight. This wasn't the end. Suddenly, the starlight started to crazily form a whirlpool, and the surging power from the world barrier was like a surging river, being absorbed by the starlight whirlpool and finally entering Su Fang's body. Unbelievable, I actually have a chill that is afraid that this surge of power will tear my body apart. Even Su Fang didn't expect that there would be such an absorption rate. The world barrier array's power entered his body through his meridians, black lotus blood vessels, and finally into the 13 yang meridians. However, the yang meridians weren't the end. The end was the golden lotus stone flower. It didn't seem like Su Fang was absorbing the world barrier, but the world fragment was absorbing this power. Qi. Time continued to pass, and Su Fang, who was in a state of infinite anticipation, was waiting for the world barrier to weaken, and then be destroyed in one fell swoop. He didn't know how much energy it had absorbed, but suddenly, in the middle of the 13 yang meridians, the golden lotus stone flower that was still and absorbing energy suddenly extended some mysterious lightning from the 5 layers of the world's stars, forming a sizzling sound, and then surging into the golden lotus stone flower. The golden lotus stone flower actually started to move clockwise from its static state. Then, it started to rotate faster, but the speed wasn't too shocking. It was like a wind chime that was slightly raised by a mighty wind, and the wind chime was slightly swaying. Moreover, there was a flash of lightning between the golden lotus stone flower, but it disappeared in the end, and the starlight of the 5 layers of the world also returned to silence. However, the golden lotus stone flower continued to rotate on its own. Then, this insignificant power seemed to drive all the power, causing the starlight whirlpool outside his body to absorb the world barrier at a speed that was several times faster. The world barrier's power was like a magnificent army, and it started to rush into Su Fang's body. At this moment, it didn't seem like Su Fang was absorbing it, but the world barrier's power was actively rushing into Su Fang's body. 222. The surroundings started to crumble. So, because Su Fang was absorbing the power too quickly, the surrounding array started to collapse at a speed that was 1 zhang. 1 zhang equals 3 m. A huge collapsing hole without any energy gradually appeared inside the world barrier. In the center of the hole, Su Fang was absorbing the surrounding power, and the collapsing speed was becoming more and more shocking. As for Su Fang, he was shocked, and then he started to laugh. He didn't expect the world fragment to absorb the power of the world barrier at such a terrifying speed when it started to rotate on its own. This is too miraculous. My strength and injuries have completely recovered, and I still have to seal this power into runes and give them to the big shots to fuse with, so that they can recover to their powerful state. The world barrier was collapsing, and soon, it would completely disappear. No, it wouldn't disappear, but it would be absorbed into Su Fang's body, and into the golden lotus stone flower. He wantonly formed seals, and the power that was rushing in was injected into the runes. However, he didn't notice that 1/5 of his head was pale white. The Tianji life shrinking technique was consuming his life force. However, he didn't cherish it at all. His life was so long and it was used today. As long as he could cross this peak, so what if he lost more than half of his life force? The world barrier was already close to 1/3, forming a large collapsing hole. He estimated that soon, the entire world barrier would become Su Fang's meal. Outside the world barrier, the primordial god world in a higher galaxy, Chi, a bloody mist accompanied the explosion of sword Chi. Chapter 855. Rock Demon, you're very strong and fast, but don't forget that this is the primordial god world. I have the power of a world and a nation. Look, please move. 1 world, 1 life. All the power will explode from my hand. The astrolabe immortal sword can be used to 80% of its power. It's already a miracle that you can use up to 50% of your Tao artifact. Accept your fate. You're no match for a nation artifact. Green Feather Monarch came out of the blood mist. The nation artifact, the astrolabe immortal sword, suddenly attacked again. Fortunately, Heaven Lord Soul Sword stopped it halfway. The primordial god emperor was a mile away, which was the galaxy above the primordial god world. He was sitting on a throne with thousands of experts injecting their magic power into it. He used the power of a nation and the essence of a world to attack Green Feather Monarch. I'll kill you first, then the other cultivators. Humph, you deserve to die. Without you blocking the nation artifact, the war would have ended long ago. Killing you 1,000 times won't be enough to vent my anger. Another large amount of world power and Emperor Qi exploded around the Xinyuan Empire. The astrolabe immortal sword attacked Green Feather Monarch. If Green Feather Monarch was hit by any sword, he would definitely die under this horrifying Tao artifact. Fortunately, Heaven Lord Soul Sword was here. The greatest ability of this Tao artifact was that it didn't need much magic power from the user. Instead, it only needed immortal stones to attack. However, the astrolabe immortal sword clashed with Heaven Lord's soul sword again and again, forming a terrifying sword chi that left wounds on Green Feather Monarch's body. Green Feather Monarch attacked with his two wings, and was always able to control Heaven Lord's soul sword in time to block the oncoming astrolabe immortal sword. From time to time, he would look at the battlefield behind him. Tao artifacts and immortal lights were clashing in the center. A large number of black holes and cracks formed. In addition, arrows and mighty primordial god cannons were constantly shooting from outside the encirclement. The entire central battlefield was covered in destruction. It was impossible to predict how many losses both sides had suffered. The Xinyuan Empire had the advantage in numbers. It was one thing to have a large number of people, but the Runhuang realm only had a few 100,000 people. Fighting to the death like this was not enough. If this continued, hundreds of thousands of experts would die. Even the dozen or so experts who were fighting with the immortals were probably not having a good time either, even though they were facing two powerful immortals with astonishing means. Su Fang, Green Feather King, looked at the world barrier and urgently called out, "You can't fall like this. Everyone is waiting for you." Emperor Xinyuan once again released an astonishing chi flame. Demon Rock, you don't even care about yourself, yet you still worry about that kid Su Fang. He's going to die today anyway, it's just that he'll die later than you. Don't expect him to come and save you. Of course, you can't possibly be an immortal's opponent. Sooner or later, you'll all be annihilated. Boom. Who knew, just as Blue Feather Monarch was in the most dangerous situation, the space in front of the primordial god world's array altar and the world barrier trembled. Oh! Even the spell altars at the side were shaken by the force of the tremors and lost much of their luster. The origin god emperor was startled, but his worried expression soon vanished. With his strength and methods, he didn't need to worry about any problems occurring with the world barrier. Crack, crack, all of a sudden, in less than a breath, the world barrier shook violently, and a series of array cracks appeared. As soon as this scene appeared, Green Feather Monarch roared in the sky, full of energy, "Ha ha, great kid, you didn't let us down." Impossible. Emperor Xinyuan was stunned. This is the most powerful array space created by the power of my empire and the power of the world. Coupled with a doctrine artifact, even immortals can't kill their way out. He's just a mortal cultivator, an ant that hasn't even reached the flying immortal realm. How could it be? Huff, huff. Immediately afterward, hundreds of thousands of imperial troops and powerful warriors protecting the primordial god world surrounded the cracked world barrier in a phalanx formation. In a short time, they had formed 3 layers of encirclement. They were waiting for the world barrier to change, and then hundreds of thousands of people would immediately attack Su Fang. No matter how powerful Su Fang was, he couldn't resist the attacks of hundreds of thousands of powerful warriors in a short time. Crack, in the sky, Emperor Xinyuan was still controlling the astrolabe immortal sword with the main purpose of killing Green Feather Monarch. Even if Su Fang came out alive, he could use this doctrine artifact to kill him. What was there to fear? The astrolabe immortal sword was obviously the most powerful weapon of the Xinyuan Empire. Suddenly, the world barrier cracked again, and it was full of cracks. Whoosh, whoosh! Streaks of starlight shone through the cracks of the barrier. The hundreds of thousands of powerful warriors were about to attack with their magic treasures. Clang! Inside the barrier, there was a fierce sound of metal colliding. This sound wave, combined with the mysterious starlight, actually cracked the barrier again. Boom! In an instant, the world barrier that sealed Su Fang exploded in the air from the force of the doctrine artifact and the starlight. The power of this explosion was too fierce. Before the hundreds of thousands of people around could react, the explosion had already engulfed them, and the primordial god world was almost shaking slightly. Whoosh! A figure jumped out from the destructive explosion, releasing starlight, and flew toward Emperor Xinyuan and Green Feather Monarch at an astonishing speed. Kid! Green Feather Monarch was overjoyed. Emperor Xinyuan's face was ashen. My most powerful array can't even shackle a feather transformation realm cultivator. In the starlight, it was Su Fang in a white robe, full of the aura of the galaxy. He shouted excitedly in the sky, "Senior Pring Monarch, thank you for your hard work." Humph, so what if you come out alive? Emperor Xinyuan was furious. He looked at the explosion and saw the spiritual camel immortal cauldron and the small universe immortal pot colliding with each other. Su Fang came behind Emperor Xinyuan. Senior, this is the power of the immortals and the Xinyuan Empire. Take it first, and after you recover, don't worry about the two immortals. Use the Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword to kill the three immortals and the four puppet. Whoosh! Green Feather Monarch turned into a human form, stepping on the Lord of Heaven's Soul Sword, and his body was full of shocking sword wounds. Grabbing a Xianguang, Green Feather Monarch turned around and flew away on his sword. Su Fang took out the Starry Daylight Sword. Emperor Xinyuan, I said you and I still have a fight. Today we will decide the winner. I don't care if you're an emperor or a sector lord. You're just a powerful enemy that I, Su Fang, must defeat. Emperor Xinyuan shook his wrist, and the nation weapon, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword, appeared in front of him. Without a Tao artifact, you can only rely on your natal magic treasure and the demonic power of the Nightmare Blood transformation. Haha, now that I have regained control of the nation weapon, you are no match for me. I don't need a Tao artifact to kill you. Also, to become the strongest in a small world, you don't have to rely on a Tao artifact. In a small world, royal-grade Dharma artifacts are the most powerful. Emperor Xinyuan, if I don't step on your corpse, then you will step on mine and laugh to the end. Haha. You're courting death. Emperor Xinyuan suddenly sat on his throne, leaving thousands of people to maintain the seals. His speed was about the same as the Wondrous Gate. This was the primordial god world Starfield, so it was normal for the Xinyuan Empire to have such speed. The Astrolabe Immortal Sword directly shot out. Just its sword energy alone had reached the level of being able to kill any mortal realm expert. I am the ruler of this world. Su Fang used the Flame Cloud Step. When the Astrolabe Immortal Sword attacked, the starry sky was pierced by the sword chi. However, Su Fang was one step faster. He used the Wondrous Gate's speed to disappear. How can his speed reach such a high level? Damn, this person's control over the starry sky has changed so much. Behind him, the Emperor Xinyuan suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Seeing Su Fang suddenly disappear, with his control over the starry sky, he felt as if Su Fang had become a completely different person. It wasn't that he was strong, but that he felt that his control over the world energy had caused him to undergo a huge transformation in the starry sky. Heavenly Sage Tyrant Body. In his panic, the Emperor Xinyuan could no longer sense Su Fang's existence. He could only use his defenses. A burning monarch chi appeared around him, forming an absolutely domineering domain that was 300 meters wide. The domain exploded, but there was no one inside. It was all boiling and oppressive monarch chi, as well as world energy. There was no one inside. The Emperor Xinyuan was startled, but his back was still cold. He looked outside the domain, searching for Su Fang's whereabouts. This person was actually able to escape from the strongest barrier in the history of my empire. Could it be that he has some peerless treasure? If I had known, I would have been more cautious. I would have completely suppressed him in this space before coming out to end this battle. He continued to use his World Lord's sensing ability, searching for Su Fang in the calm and empty void. Where was he? He had disappeared. There was no one inside the domain, and outside the domain was the starry sky. Protect the Emperor. The stalemate lasted for 2 hours. The Emperor Xinyuan was still uneasy. He was still unable to find Su Fang. As for the thousands of experts, they flew over from the starry sky. The final victor is me. In front of the Emperor Xinyuan. Not behind him. There was no substance, only a shocking boiling monarch qi, as well as world energy. Unexpectedly, there were 2 rings of flames the size of a longan. From the outside, it looked like a flame formed from burning energy. But from the inside of the flame, there was a pair of eyes. The 2 eyes were burning with flames. They came from the primordial god world, the Xinyuan Empire's power. And upon closer inspection, the 2 eyes were being controlled by a flame person. They were only 10 steps away from the Xinyuan Empire. 10 steps. Suddenly, the energy flame burned even more fiercely. Along with the surging energy flame, it approached the Emperor Xinyuan step by step. At this time, the Emperor Xinyuan did not notice anything strange. All the energy around him was released by him. There was no problem. Protect the Emperor. Thousands of people were about to enter the domain. Emperor Xinyuan slowly waved his hand and then shouted, "Activate the barrier and search for Su Fang in the surroundings." Pucci, just as he said the 2 words, Su Fang, a flame swept over. The Emperor Xinyuan was wearing a Dao artifact armor. Nearby, the astrolabe immortal sword was entrenched. Suddenly, a flame swept over from in front of him. Suddenly, a starlight sword appeared and pierced through the Emperor Xinyuan's throat. The Emperor Xinyuan subconsciously grabbed his neck with both hands. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out blood. His hands grabbed a starlight sword that gradually appeared. Starlight sword. Emperor, Emperor! Thousands of experts shouted in despair. It's you! The Emperor Xinyuan saw the starlight sword and knew who suddenly attacked him. His eyes trembled. The nation artifact astrolabe immortal sword behind him suddenly stabbed towards the flame. Hua! The starlight sword suddenly spun. At the same time, the flame behind him suddenly turned into a human and flashed behind the Emperor Xinyuan. The Emperor Xinyuan's head fell. The astrolabe immortal sword also stabbed into the flame. Chapter 856. Emperor! From the Milky Way there was a cry of pain. Because all the cultivators of the Xinyuan Empire in this Milky Way battlefield respected Emperor Xinyuan. At this moment, Emperor Xinyuan's head fell and he died. The world barrier of the primordial god world lost most of its luster. Everyone felt that they had no place to put their faith. They had already sensed Emperor Xinyuan's death. Whoosh! The national treasure astrolabe immortal sword suddenly attacked Su Fang, who was behind Emperor Xinyuan. Astrolabe immortal sword, are you sure? It was a close-range attack that Su Fang could not dodge. Once he was hit, Su Fang would not be able to survive. Swish! But then Su Fang shook his arm. The astrolabe immortal sword actually stopped half a meter away from Su Fang. The sword qi could not be controlled and dispersed, leaving sword marks everywhere. So, the reason why the astrolabe immortal sword stopped in front of Su Fang was because Su Fang was holding Emperor Xinyuan's head in his left hand, and it was hanging 1 meter away from the astrolabe immortal sword. Su Fang looked at the astrolabe immortal sword and shouted, "This is your master. I know you won't hurt it. Also, I have to tell you, everything your master has, I also have. You won't understand, but with this head, you can't hurt me." Despicable human. The astrolabe immortal sword's sword qi had to be suppressed. Su Fang grabbed Emperor Xinyuan's head and absorbed the headless body into his body, maintaining a stalemate with the astrolabe immortal sword. The astrolabe immortal sword was always looking for an opportunity to kill Su Fang and avenge Emperor Xinyuan. It would also complete its mission as the guardian of the primordial god world. But because of the human head astrolabe immortal sword, it couldn't attack. Su Fang released the unparalleled heavenly demon disintegration seal, allowing a large amount of his consciousness to escape into the void. He then released his vast magic power, causing a whistling sound to ring out in front of the galaxy. The primordial god world's strongest expert, the primordial god emperor, also known as the primordial god world's master, has been killed by me, Su Fang. His head is in my hands. I advise you all to stop wasting your lives for nothing and become the immortals' lackeys and chess pieces. The immortals can leave at any time they wish. To the Xinyuan Empire, this vast sound was like a landslide. At this moment, the entire primordial god realm began to tremble. And in the midst of the slaughter, the powerhouses from the Renhuang world heard this and their spirits were greatly roused. They desperately used their most powerful strength to fight their way into the primordial god world and meet up with Su Fang. Why aren't you scramming? At this moment, Su Fang released a fierce divine light that swept across the thousands of experts who came to rescue Su Fang. Their bodies trembled, but no one dared to make a sound. Before the war began, Su Fang had fought his way into the galaxy alone. Until now, the power and strength he had displayed had already deeply shocked the primordial god world. Astrolabe Immortal Sword. Su Fang did not immediately help the powerhouses deal with the immortals. It was not that he did not want to go. It was that he could not leave. The national treasure, the Astrolabe Immortal Sword, was not even half a step away, ready to attack at any moment. Su Fang had no choice but to use his head to maintain a stalemate. But at this moment, Su Fang smiled strangely and grabbed a white skull with his right hand. In an instant, a bloody light burst out from Su Fang's body, accompanied by abundant power from the Xinyuan Empire. As for Su Fang, he was burning the primordial god world's emperor Qi and the world's essence. He was the powerhouse of the primordial god world. Su Fang grabbed a streak of blood-red light and pointed it at the stellar platter immortal sword. You can sense it, right? This is the origin god emperor's blood. It is everything in the origin god world, and I've seized his body. My body contains his power, the power of a small world, and even his blood essence aura. How come I'm not your master? Your mission is to protect the origin god world, while I now possess the power of a world and control an astonishing amount of its essence. You. The Astrolabe Immortal Sword sensed an extremely familiar aura from Su Fang. It was as if he was breathing with its sword qi. It was not the only one. Su Fang was the same. After devouring Emperor Xinyuan, he could already control a lot of the world's essence and the Xinyuan Empire's most essential national power. To the Astrolabe Immortal Sword, this was just a cultivator who had changed his appearance, but was still the master of the primordial god world. But Su Fang suddenly flashed and turned into a figure of starlight. He came to the side of the Astrolabe Immortal Sword and grabbed the sword's hilt with his right hand. Buzz! The immortal sword struggled. But when Su Fang poured his power into it, it calmed down in just 3 breaths. Su Fang shouted, very good, very good. My power is the power of the primordial god world. You have to see the situation clearly and help me kill the immortals. This is your mission. As for the primordial god world, it's still the primordial god world of the past. If you don't listen, I really don't have the means to deal with you. The sword spirit said, my mission is to protect the primordial god world and the Jing family. Promise me that you won't kill the Jing family. That's fine. Do you think I'm still a homicidal maniac? Alright, I'll secretly absorb the primordial god world's power and bring you along to kill the immortals. Let's go. Countless experts from the primordial god world surrounded them. Su Fang threw Emperor Xinyuan to the center of the group of experts and stepped on the Astrolabe Immortal Sword to fly to the center of the battlefield. That's our national weapon. Why is our national weapon willing to submit? Su Fang, who was standing on the Astrolabe Immortal Sword, shocked millions of experts. The countless cultivators of the Xinyuan Empire could only watch as their familiar nation armament was controlled by an outsider, a cultivator who had killed the Xinyuan emperor. How could they not be shocked? It was as if these experts had sunk into the depths of the icy Milky Way as the primordial god world's light disappeared. Boom, boom, boom. In less than 3 breaths, at the center of the battlefield, Su Fang, who was riding the astrolabe immortal sword, encountered a series of explosions. He looked up and saw the undying tortoise fighting with immortal master Ling Xian's Dao artifact. The undying tortoise was injured, but it wasn't serious. Not far away, Bai Ling and Jing Suifeng were locked in a fierce battle. The chaotic energy was protecting her, and with the celestial neck spirit ring protecting her, Jing Suifeng couldn't completely suppress the chaotic energy. Even with the Dao artifact attacking the celestial neck spirit ring, he couldn't threaten Bai Ling's life. Su Fang immediately flew to another large battlefield. He saw the sky-piercing venerable monster, Vermilion Emperor, 9-segment Earth Dragon, 9-headed Fiend King, Brute Force Fiend King, and the other big goblin. They were working together with the Lord of 5 Poisons and the other big shots to deal with the demonic immortal and the puppet. Whether it was the big shots or the big goblin, they were all more seriously injured than the undying tortoise. Fortunately, they had killed 1 demonic immortal and heavily injured 2. As for the 4 immortal puppets, they had also killed 2. Su Fang activated the astrolabe immortal sword, and the sword light illuminated the battlefield. Everyone, let's kill the demonic immortal and the puppets first, then we'll work together to deal with the 2 immortals. Master! Everyone's morale was greatly boosted when they saw Su Fang. Su Fang immediately looked at the 2 immortal puppets. They were currently being surrounded by the Lord of 5 Poisons, Li Ziqing, Su Zhenhua, and Li Haojie. No matter how strong the 4 of them were, they had worked together to deal with the 4 immortal puppets. It had not been easy for them to kill 2 of them. Now they were all exhausted. Whoosh! The astrolabe immortal sword once again released its shocking light and speed. Boom! The sword was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it hit one of the puppets and created a bloody hole in its head. The puppets were not alive. They did not die even after a bloody hole. The other experts also threw out their Dao artifacts. Taking advantage of the fact that the puppet had lost most of its ability to move, they immediately turned it into meat paste. Only 1 puppet remained. Everyone, go deal with the 2 heavily injured demonic immortals. Su Fang held the Starry Daylight sword and threw out a talisman to everyone. They were all full of power. Tut tut tut. The remaining puppet was also riddled with injuries. However, puppets didn't know pain, so what did these minor injuries matter? It unleashed a 30,000-meter-long immortal flame fist technique that was truly terrifying, and seemed intent on burying both Su Fang and Xinghe. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was for the Lord of 5 Poisons and the others to work together to deal with the 4 immortal puppets. They had definitely experienced an unprecedented battle of life and death. Su Fang was unable to deal with the immortal puppet. In truth, he didn't need to do anything himself. The astrolabe immortal sword slashed at the fiery river of immortal light. It was like a river of stars had exploded when it collided with the river of immortal light. A large number of black holes and cracks appeared. Sizzle! The immortal sword shattered the immortal light's power step by step. Su Fang was using the primordial god world's power, as well as his own mysterious ability to increase the astrolabe immortal sword's power. But the puppets were immortals after all. Although their attacks were simple, they were powerful. However, there was a limit to the power of a puppet. It was the controller of the puppet who infused the puppet with magic power and immortal energy. If the puppet continued to fight without any magic power, it would be exhausted just like a cultivator. The astrolabe immortal sword kept attacking the puppets. It was really unstoppable. Su Fang's eyes lit up. It's all thanks to the sect master and the others. If they hadn't fought so hard with the puppets and consumed their combat power, I wouldn't have been able to take control of the situation in such a short time. Poof! He shattered the puppet's attack. The sword hit the puppet's body fiercely and slashed it into a pile of mud. The 4 puppets had completely fallen here. This was not Su Fang's credit, but the result of the powerhouses fighting with their lives. He turned around and rode the astrolabe immortal sword to the other side of the starry sky. When he arrived, more than a dozen magic treasures were wildly bombarding the 2 immortal monsters. Miserable. It was extremely miserable. Unfortunately, one of the 3 immortal monsters was killed. The remaining 2 could be suppressed now, but it was useless because Immortal Masterling Xin and Jing Suifeng were shackling the wills of the immortal monsters. Even if they were captured alive, the 2 immortals would instantly kill the 2 big goblin immortals. Otherwise, Su Fang could find a way to suppress them. After all, he and Li Haojie were both demon-suppressing experts. There was no need for Su Fang to do anything. Now, there were more than a dozen Dao artifacts besieging the 2 injured immortal monsters. There would be no accident. Boom boom. 2 consecutive explosions. One Dao treasure after another smashed the 2 demon immortals into a bloody mist. Their corpses were scattered everywhere. The Vermilion Emperor, the 9-section Earth Dragon, the sky-piercing Venerable Monster, the 9-headed Demon King, the Black Ridge Demon King, and the Brute Force Demon King snatched the pieces and devoured them. This was the flesh of a immortal monster. It was very nutritious. The immortal monster's body was huge. There was blood and minced meat everywhere. Su Fang also used his supreme power to gather all the blood and gave it to the big goblin to devour. The last 2 immortals. Green Feather King, the Lord of 5 Poisons, Li Ziqing, Li Haojie, Su Zhenhua, Qin Yuanhou and Sacred Monarch Guangzhou in human form came to Su Fang's side one by one. After a while, the big goblin also came. More than a dozen peerless experts with Dao artifacts followed Su Fang on the astrolabe immortal sword and went to the Star River in front of them. Unexpected. Jing Suifeng, who was fighting with Bai Ling, suddenly flashed out of the battle. He was surprised to see Su Fang and the others besieging him. Even in a great world, 3 immortal monsters and 4 puppets are not ordinary forces. Your days are over. Bai Ling went to the back to prevent Jing Suifeng from escaping. Jing Suifeng staggered and suddenly took out a shield-like Dao artifact. He grabbed it with his right hand and it released a celestial light. He exclaimed, "It's you, kid! Impossible! Mortal cultivators can't appear in my galaxy without a sound. And how can you catch up with my speed?" Xinghe Su Fang's giant shadow was 30 meters tall, but it was in an incorporeal state. However, it burst out with a sharp voice, "Jing Suifeng, you really don't have the guts. I, Su Fang, have overestimated you. Could it be that you don't want to take revenge for Jingbei Emperor, Emperor Xinyuan, and your imperial descendants? They were all killed by me. You think I'm going to run away? You can think so. But don't be too arrogant. Wait until I condense my Dharma power and create a supreme immortal level technique. When I come back, I will skin you and the cultivators under your command and dig out their hearts. Then all the more I can't let you run away. That immortal master Ling Xin is cunning. He left first. I can't catch up with him. But you are different. You are an immortal of the Jing family. If you have the ability to kill this sovereign, then this sovereign would have killed that little demon a long time ago if she didn't have a peerless Dao artifact protecting her. What about you? That little heaven and earth immortal pot of yours should have already exhausted its immortal chi, right? You know that it is the small heaven and earth immortal pot. Of course I know. That is a common storage space Dharma treasure in a big world. Mortals will always be mortals. You are short-sighted. How can you know the importance of chi of immortal and body of immortal? You will regret it when you ascend. I will suppress you now. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Jing Suifeng suddenly looked behind him. More than 10 experts with Dao artifacts were crazily attacking him. His eyes revealed a bad feeling. His immortal body shook. He grabbed the shield-like Dao artifact with his right hand. A shocking aura rushed out from the Dao artifact. This aura came from the true power of the Dao artifact. Heaven-worshipping palm technique. As for the star giant Su Fang, he suddenly formed hand seals. The Milky Way figure struck out with 2 starlight palms. The shield Dao artifact's aura rushed out like a tiger pouncing on its prey. It smashed into the starlight palms. Without any suspense, the huge palms were completely shattered under the power of the Dao artifact. Jing Suifeng thought that he was going to be killed, but then he saw a figure appear in front of him. What kind of divine ability is this? Su Fang appeared with his real body this time. It is the supreme profound of the ethereal enlightenment that you are looking for in the lower realm. It can allow me to surpass immortals in the Milky Way and achieve impossible miracles. For example, I can absorb energy in the Milky Way and control matter to fuse with divine abilities. You gave me time to catch up to you. The legend of the ethereal spiritual master about the ethereal enlightenment is indeed true. Human Emperor, oh Human Emperor, you are a genius of your generation. You really do have some skills. If you have such divine abilities, how do you know that immortals using Dao artifacts are different from mortals using Dao artifacts? Brat, you won't be so lucky this time. What ethereal enlightenment! If those immortals didn't want it, I wouldn't treat it as a treasure. Any low-level power is no match for the power of a high-level world. He attacked again. He used all his strength to activate the Dao artifact. At the same time, the shockwave released by the Dao artifact burned, and a large number of black holes appeared. What a terrifying power! It seemed that if Jing Suifeng was just a bit stronger, he would be able to create a shocking black hole in the Milky Way. Good. That battle with the Origin God Emperor was my limit. Now that my strength has increased, I want to see how much of a difference there is between us. Great giant diamond body. Su Fang didn't choose to dodge this kind of attack. He took a step forward. A golden aura began to spread out. Then, golden runes burst out from his meridians, flesh, and even his hair. His body emitted blood qi, and then he began to grow bigger. After a breath, Su Fang turned into a 3-zhang tall giant. His skin was golden, and even his head turned golden. Jing Suifeng was startled at first, but he didn't forget that he was an immortal. He sped up his attack. Evil cultivation techniques are useless. Herculean divine palm. Shwa shwa shwa. The gigantic Su Fang swung his arms, and his body arched like a bow. He punched the void with his fists, one palm strike after another. Immediately, in the space between him and Jing Suifeng, many golden divine power palm prints appeared and pounced on Jing Suifeng one after another. It's useless. Jing Suifeng raised his eyebrows, and his killing intent turned into a terrifying aura. The Dao artifact hit one of the golden palms. The palms first shook and then shattered. Jing Suifeng was shocked. It seemed that he didn't expect that a lower realm divine ability could block the attack of a Dao artifact. Boom boom boom. Next, he blocked the golden palms in front of Su Fang. One by one, the palms were shattered by the Dao artifact's aura. Jing Suifeng also used up a lot of his immortal aura. Seems like, after shattering the last palms, Jing Suifeng used up all his strength. He used all his strength to attack the Dao artifact that wasn't as powerful as before. Papa! The gigantic Su Fang didn't retreat or dodge at all. He cleaved his arms agilely and swiftly, and hit the Dao artifact that was coming at him. He used both his hands to block the Dao artifact. Jing Suifeng bared his teeth at this moment. He probably never had the thought of killing someone so much. The Dao artifact and the immortal's strength pressed down on the gigantic Su Fang, and his bones seemed to be shattered. Jing Suifeng was shocked. What kind of physical body do you have? Even the big goblin under you can't use their physical bodies to fight against a Tao artifact. He was right. Among the big goblin, only the undying turtle could fight against a Tao artifact directly. No, the undying turtle could only use its shell to fight against a Tao artifact. Its body probably couldn't do the same. Su Fang's arms started to tear. He, who was gigantic, felt that he didn't lose to a Tao artifact at this moment. It was just that the Tao artifact and the immortal's strength were really terrifying. Heavenly Next Spirit Ring. Go. Gritting his teeth, Su Fang watched his arms being torn apart by the Tao artifact. He persisted. Suddenly, a white figure flew over from above and flicked his finger. A familiar circle attacked Jing Suifeng from the starlight. Seeing this, Su Fang used his 5 fingers again, and his body was like a bow. He used his mortal body to fight against a Tao artifact and an immortal in the Milky Way without using a Tao artifact or Dharma treasure, which mortal cultivator could see through countless small worlds. He was just a Ascension Realm cultivator. Boom! After a breath, the circle moved at lightning speed. Jing Suifeng didn't have time to react before his head was hit. Then his body turned into a cloud of blood mist. He didn't even have the chance to moan or struggle. He was in the hands of the little demon from the mortal world that he once ignored. Bai Ling didn't activate the Heavenly Next Spirit Circle because she was waiting for an opportunity. Just in time, Sister Bai. Su Fang was so tired that he took 3 steps back. Then, his giant body gradually lost its golden light and returned to its normal state. He took another 3 steps back before finally stabilizing himself. However, more than half of his head was pale. Clearly, activating the giant diamond body had consumed a large amount of his life force. The other experts also rushed over. The undying turtle looked into the sky. There's another immortal. Su Fang recovered and regrouped with everyone. That person fled too quickly. Fortunately, he's not from the Origin God Imperial family and only came to the lower realm to deal with me. He's not a threat to anyone. I think he only has one choice now, which is to return to the outside world. I hope he can still arrogantly come back. He turned around. We still have the most important thing to do, which is to stop the war. Everyone, go back. Some of you will kill your way into the Origin God world, while the others will kill your way into the enemy's formation. Force them to give up resistance. Indeed, we can't let more people die here. Everyone, go. The Lord of 5 Poisons nodded and took the lead to fly down to the battlefield. Only Green Feather King, Bai Ling, the Undying Turtle, Su Zhenhua, and Li Haojie were left. They slowly flew behind. Green Feather King looked at Su Fang and said with concern, "That kid is fine. I used the giant diamond body, so there's no problem. I just used up a lot of my life force like before. I'll need some time to recover." Su Fang told everyone not to worry, and he gradually increased his speed. He and Bai Ling flew back to the Origin God world, while the others released their Tao artifacts outside the battlefield. That kid, a great perfection physical body. No, it looks like a great perfection physical body, but there's a divine might in his body that can restrain Jing Suifeng's power and the Tao artifact's immortal light. Good, this kid's entire body is a treasure. For example, his giant diamond body can directly resist Tao artifacts as a Ascendant Transformation Realm cultivator. If an immortal had such a giant diamond body, wouldn't they be able to dominate the outside world? Although we didn't obtain the ethereal true explanation left behind by the human sovereign, we've still done a meritorious deed. With such a divine ability, we can report it to our superiors. Tian, Jingbei Wang, and Jing Suifeng, you can only blame yourselves for being unlucky. In the distant astral river, Immortal Master Ling Xian was hiding in a meteor, watching as Jing Suifeng was killed without any aura. Suddenly, with a smug smile, he disappeared into the astral river. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.